God.
I do.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Have a seat. All right, Mr. Bates, I should have done this while Marshal Walker was entering. You have alleged somewhere around 50 various allegations in the petition. If you can give the court a general idea of where you're going to be focused on attacking this conviction, whether or not it's in the ineffective assistance of counsel realm, inappropriate conduct on the part of the state. Just give me a general idea as the witnesses come.
Yes, Your Honor. This witness was in the original pro se filing of ineffective assistance of counsel. As to both prongs.
And because we have three attorneys, are you going to, is it three defense attorneys that are alleged ineffective assistance of counsel? Is it just one, or is it all three?
This relates to both Jim Simmons and Jennifer Thompson.
All right, I'm going to have you pause 1 second. What's this siren going on, Chief?
Severe thunderstorm warning.
All right. All right, when you're ready, Mr. Bates.
State your name, please.
John Walker.
And what is are you employed now?
I'm retired from the United States Marshal.
Okay. How long were you a United States Marshal?
26 years.
Is the proper way to address you Marshal Walker?
Just John.
Okay, well, in court, Mr. Walker.
That'd be great.
All right, so what is your education?
I have an undergraduate degree in criminology, and I have a graduate degree in education and one in industrial technology.
Okay. What did you do for work before you became a U.S. Marshal?
I was a state investigator with the state of Texas for a couple of years. Prior to that, I was a law enforcement officer, about 35 years in law enforcement.
Okay. What was your work experience as a U.S. Marshal? What did you do?
I did a variety of things. My first few years, I worked a felony one murder trial in Washington, D.C. After that, I was the warrant coordinator in the Eastern District of Texas from about 89 to 96. Means I managed the warrant files for the U.S. Eastern District. This covers 43 counties. Apprehending fugitives is what I did. Ran a task force. And then after that, I worked in the Strategic National Stockpile Program, and I was liaison to the CDC. My last 15 years liaison to the CDC, Center for Disease Control, and the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force.
Joint what task force?
Joint Terrorism Task Force.
Okay.
The FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force. My last 15 years.
And did you spend time in your work tracking?
Yes. Yes, I did that in Eastern Texas quite a bit.
Okay. How many years work?
6.
And
We had a variety of ways to catch fugitives, and one was tracking cell phones.
okay, was finding fugitives a part of your work?
It was my main job.
For how many years?
6.
All right. How do you find a fugitive? What are the things that you did as your time finding fugitives?
Oh, there's 100 ways to find fugitives, through interviews, through electronic surveillance, through just good old police work, finding fugitives. Just try to find out where they're at. There's a number of tricks in the trade that we have in the Marshal Service. Some are unique to just our agency, and some are just common knowledge.
Okay. At some point, were you called to come to Decatur County, Tennessee in 2011?
I was sent over by the FBI's Terrorism Task Force
And
to work the Holly Bobo abduction and missing.
Okay. How soon after the abduction date of April 13th?
I was there the following week. I
Okay.
think the following Monday, I believe it was.
At that time, how long had you worked in tracking fugitives?
At that time, I spent 6 prior years, and helping other people at time to time, but at least 6 years.
What was your knowledge of using 2G cell service networks at that time to help track fugitives?
Well, excellent. That's Eastern District of Texas. It's rural counties. There's 43. It's very similar to Decatur County. Rolling hills, trees, lakes. That's the way we tracked fugitives in Eastern District of Texas with 2G because we didn't have 3G. Towers were anywhere from 5 to 10 miles apart, and you use 2G technology. 3G overlaps. You have triangulation. You can get exact location. That's like in urban areas, but in rural areas, you don't have that. You have to rely on 2G towers, and that's what I'd done a number of high-profile cases. We call them major cases, and apprehending fugitives doing that.
And what was to the extent you can say, what was your training and education on these issues?
A lot of it was on-job training. I did attend a few classes, like in Dallas, a few classes on this, but a lot of it was on-job training. Since I was the warrant coordinator for the district, the Marshal Service developed an electronic surveillance program in the 1990s from an AT&T tech that they hired. That taught us a great deal about tracking through all kinds of electronic surveillance, IP addresses, computers, phones. In my district, I didn't have an electronic surveillance person. I had one in Dallas and one in Houston. And I borrowed their expertise and borrowed them from time to time when I had a major case. And I worked directly with them, but I also learned on my own on how to track 2G towers. It's not that complicated. I can explain in detail how it's done.
Do it
Now?
right now.
Your Honor, is he offering him as an expert?
I am, because one of the issues of error is that Miss Thompson,
You don't have to explain why. Let's just get through, are you tendering him as an expert witness, and in what field?
tracking fugitives using 2G network.
All right. Has there been
I don't even know.
disclosure about this?
No. He was not allowed to testify as an expert at trial. He was offered by Ms. Thompson as an expert. He was voir dired by the state, and he never was qualified in Judge McGinley's eyes as an expert because he's never been offered as an expert, tendered as an expert, or used as an expert in cell phone devices previously, prior to trial. And he's just testified that he's had on-the-job training and he's attended some classes. And the state would submit that that's not enough to warrant expertise.
So the issue,
Same issue as we had at trial.
the issue at trial was Ms. Thompson tried to certify this expert as a, quote, cell phone expert. That was a mislabeling of the expert. He is an expert. Under Rule 700 series, you can be an expert based on either your education, your training, or your experience. He was never tendered to be an expert as tracking with 2G network, which consumes a lot of different areas. Again, just want to remind the court, most of this trial, I am using the witnesses who testified to show what should have been presented by a constitutionally competent attorney. This is the first of such efforts.
State
All right.
would submit tomato. You can't come in and,
Well, I'm going to allow the question as asked to explain what 2G tracking is, and I think that was the question. Mr. Bates, was that the question?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. I want to hear what his explanation is, and then I'll make a determination
Okay.
whether or not,
It would be easier if I had a board to draw on to try to explain this. Is that
well, that's
possible?
between you and your attorney, sir.
What do you have?
A board to draw on, so I can explain this, something I can draw this out. I mean, I can try to explain it to you, but it's easier to follow along if,
Your Honor, can I have 2 minutes of indulgence?
Yes, let's do that. You be seated, please. You may, but hold on one second. I'm gonna let you bring that board around. You can have a seat there, just for this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there is significant weather in the area. There's a thunderstorm that's gonna push through here with estimated 40 to 50 mile an hour winds. But it shouldn't last but about 30 minutes. It's gonna be a quick push through. So at about 10 till 10, wherever we get with this witness, I'm gonna recess and ask that everyone just stay away from windows in the courthouse. That's, the EMA director doesn't think we're gonna get a tornado, but just for safety purposes, we're gonna be away from these windows, okay? Understood?
Yes, sir.
All right. You may approach, Mr. Bates.
Hey, Agent Walker, Mr. Walker, can you explain
2G tower.
2G and your use in tracking with it?
How do you try 2G tower? Okay. Let's see. First of all, a 2G tower is not like a 3G tower. 3G, 4G, 5G, those are overlapped. 2G is in rural areas. They're in rural areas, and what happens is you can't get triangulation, so you get a signal off of the tower. And that signal is a certain strength to tell you how far you're off the tower. Now, towers in eastern Texas and Decatur County, I'm gonna talk about Decatur County towers. Decatur County towers are north-oriented towers. That means the top of the tower points this way. This is an aerial view looking down. You have 3 sections in a tower. You're gonna have sections, and these are clockwise. Some do ABC, some do different rotations. The 3 towers are AT&T towers. They're north-oriented, and there are 1, a 2, and a 3 in the sections. And these sections, these towers are sometimes, like in the Shiloh Road over here is 7 miles away from the Cox Road Tower. They're 7 miles apart. So what you're gonna get is when you have this tower that's like this section may cover up to 5, 6, 7, even 10 miles out. Okay, they're in 3 sections. And when you read a tower is gonna have a number, like this Cox Road Tower is 3152. And the last number on that tower is gonna have a 5-digit number. The first 4 are the tower number. The last one is the cell section it's in. It'll say the tower number, and sections 1, 2, or 3 will be the last numbers on it. That'll tell you what section that cell phone is in that tower. Okay, so that's how you read when you have what is called a tower dump. A tower dump's gonna lay all the calls out from that phone number, and when you read it across, it's gonna tell you which tower that phone is reading to. The first 4 are the tower numbers. The second last number is the low section it's in. There's another way to read this too. This is I can talk about this now because this is old technology, but there's a Marshal service way that we used to catch people. Because off of the tower, you can ping a cell phone, even when it's off, as long as the battery's on it, you can ping a cell phone. And what a ping a cell phone is when the AT&T will send a signal to the tower, and that will tell you a signal strength off of the tower, how far that cell phone is out. Okay? So it'll tell you distance from the center of the tower out. So if we get a ping, and let's say it's here, that tells you, so signal strength off of the tower, but it's not necessarily that spot, it's anywhere equal distance off of the tower. Anywhere in that equal distance, that band through there, that ping, that phone could be anywhere in there based on that signal strength on a ping. Okay? Now, what we used to do in the Marshal service to catch people is we have a device that our districts have. It's a little machine about this big. You can plug a cell.
You indicated about.
It's about 2 feet by 1.5 feet by about this big. We had machines in our districts that we could plug a cell phone into. Other agencies don't have this. It's a Marshal service thing. And what you would do is you would find the kind of cell phone that your bad guy had, your fugitive had, and you would get the same model, make, and wattage, and you would put that in this device. This device will tell you how far you're off the tower. At the same time, we're talking to an AT&T tech, and we're trying to match that person's signal strength. For instance, say this is a very rural area, and you have a road that crosses here, and a road that crosses here, and you have an apartment complex over here, or a trailer park over here. What we would do is we would drive to those areas with our machine and try to match its signal strength when that phone is on. So we would know where our person's at. And it will get within 50 yards of the person. Okay? Now, in this case, on Holly's phone was pinged several times. And then what that does is that tells you
All right,
a
but
distance off of the
Before he gets
tower.
into the specifics of the case, I'm going to stop him there just for a second. You know, the rules of evidence do allow that if scientific knowledge could help, in this case, the court understand what his testimony is going to be about. He's had 6 years of tracking experience through the U.S. Marshal Service, clearly has an understanding at least of the 2G towers. I'm going to allow him to testify as an expert witness in this.
When you were called to come up to
Okay.
Decatur County, did you come up as somebody to help lend your services with your knowledge and experience?
There was a Marshal Service person sent over to help out of Nashville that I know. The problem is the TBI was not sharing information, and the FBI wasn't sharing information, so he got frustrated and left. John Mayer, the supervisor of the TBI, noticed that myself and then my partner were looking at the cell phone data pretty seriously about trying to figure out where her phone tracked, because where her phone tracked is probably where she was at. And he noticed
Is he
that.
done with this board? Can he sit back down?
You want to sit back down, you're going to use it?
Well, I'm gonna use the draw, I can sit down for a moment.
Yeah.
But it's just, I want to draw out Holly's tracking if I can later.
All right, whenever you get to that.
Okay. He asked us to, if we could map Holly's cell phone. And I said, yes, I can map it. And for the first several months, I continued to ask TBI that I needed this AT&T device so I could figure out where the end of cell sections were. The device will tell you when you shift from one cell section to another cell section. And I didn't have that. I had a very vague area where the cell sections were. For the first 6-7 months, I was trying to do it on just a basic idea about where the cell sections ended at. I didn't know exactly where they overlapped at. And finally, after about 8 months, Terry Dicus was able to get a AT&T tech there, and that AT&T tech showed up with that machine, and I rode in the back of the car for a better part of a day while the AT&T tech drove me around, and I mapped these cell sections where they broke at. And this machine that they had was more fancier than the ones we had, because it had 4 phones that were exactly like Holly's, same make, model, and wattage AT&T phones like Holly's plugged into this machine. And I rode in the back of the car, and I mapped the cell sections. And the way this machine works is it puts a little dot, colored dot, about the size of a punch out on a notebook, little colored dot on the roadway as you drive around. And the colored dots are different colors compared to the sections. One's pink, one's blue, one's red. And all towers have different colored dots. So when you drive around, you can easily map where these spots break at. Because once you do that, you can take where Holly's phone's at, where it was at, and where it registers in certain cell sections, and you can map out where her phone travels. Now, this does not work in urban areas because there's too many possibilities for roadways. But in an urban area, the roadways are a rural area where the roadways are far apart, you can map this.
And at some point, did you create a map?
Yes, in 2012, I created a map.
If I may, I have one for a bench copy and one for the
How,
witness.
that's of how Holly's phone traveled.
Does they have a copy?
Yes, Your Honor.
It's how it traveled between 7:45, well, actually 8 a.m. to 9:30.
And
You say one copy for me.
one copy's for you. Can you hand one to the court, please?
Yeah, this is an overlay of the map. This is what I was originally working with, the overlay. This is me driving around with AT&T, figuring out where cell sections break.
Okay, so to be clear, the second page of this is a map with multiple colors.
Yeah, that's just an overlay. That's the original overlay. It needs to be more accurate. You need to have roadways on that when you drive. When I drove around with AT&T, I was able to map roadways. And I made my own map, and I did have one in the file, the TBI file.
Okay. And the first page of this,
That's me riding around with AT&T, figuring out where cell sections break at.
you created both of these documents.
Yes. No, I didn't create the first one. AT&T did the first. The second one, AT&T created that. That's AT&T.
Is that one that was given to you?
Given to me during the first month I was there.
And is this what was given to you, is this used in your tracking?
It was a general idea, but it wasn't specific enough. I needed more specifics.
Okay. Your Honor, I move to enter this as a collective exhibit next.
Objections?
No.
All right, without objections, we'll mark this as Exhibit 4.
Were you able to use your experience in training and develop a route based on Ms. Holly's pings?
Yes. No, well, not only her pings, but when somebody called her phone during that 8 a.m. to 9:30, it would register in a cell section. So I had cell sections and pings. So that's distance off of the tower and cell sections, a number of those. And it became real clear, because the way the towers line up, it became real clear that her phone left at 8 a.m. and went straight to the freeway. Because at 8:11, if it would have ventured over to Bible Hill Road, it would have been on the Parsons Tower. And if at 8:11, it would have ventured over this way, there's a real powerful tower over in this other section called the Human Tower, it would have been on it. So it was real clear it went straight north.
At some point, did you reduce your work to a memorandum of sorts?
Yes. Well, I made the map first, and the map was there for quite some time. It's, I did do a memorandum on it to TBI when her remains were found, and I have a reason why I did that.
Ms. Franks? Sir. We got another exhibit, please. All right, let's pass that one to the court reporter for Exhibit 4.
Judge, what was 3?
3 is a transcript that we're going to supply to you.
And do you recognize this document?
Yes.
And what's the first page?
It's an outline of how her phone traveled. And a description of when she was probably killed.
And this is your work product.
Yes.
And when did you develop this work?
There's a reason behind this. The first reason is that I developed this about a week after her remains were found, but I had all of this information in my, because this is, just to drive around to figure out the drive time took 3.5 months. Okay, of driving the routes to figure, with a stopwatch, figuring the drive time. That was back in 2012 when I created the map. The reason this was created is because for 8 months, while these individuals were in custody, for 8 months, they said that she was taken down and thrown in the river.
Who's they?
TBI.
Okay.
That she's taken down and thrown in the river. And I said, that is not accurate. That phone never went, there is a cell tower down by the river on the west bank, about a mile off the river. That phone never registered on that. So she never went down to the river at all. That's not true. And so if that went on for 8 months, and then her remains were found where I thought they were going to be found.
Let's stop there. When did you think her remains were going to be found?
Near
Were
the
they?
we thought that in the very first part of the investigation. I
Within-
mean, the first week I was there, me and my partner, Tom Bach, went to the freeway and looked at that area. So we knew that early on. We just didn't know, we were trying to narrow that down because it is a big, vast area.
And this, what's the road the remains were found off of? Have you been there?
Since, yes, no,
You know the name of the road?
not off the top of my head.
That's
No.
fine. Had you communicated to people prior to the finding of the remains, your belief where the remains were?
Yes. The morning that the skeletal remains were found, I called Ricky Inmans, the chief deputy of the county, and I asked him, I said, where were those remains found?
Hearsay.
All right, the objection is hearsay.
First of all, there's been no statement from Investigator Inman yet. He is saying, I called.
I called, I'll talk to him.
He started to talk about what he said out of court.
He's a declarant. It's not,
Hold on one second. The proposed statement was what he was about to say that the other person said? Or are you saying that his statement's
He's
hearsay?
about to offer an out-of-court statement of his own, out-of-court statement that he's offering.
oh,
But
Your Honor, hearsay is what's,
Going into
Is
what
is
Mr.
it
Inman said.
is it for the truth?
I don't know what Investigator Inman said in response. What the general's response is, what Agent or Mr. Walker said is hearsay. He's testifying. He can say what he said outside of court.
But it's being offered in court. The question is it for the truth of the matter? So, the objection is sustained. It is hearsay. But I've got to hear what it is to find out if it's for the truth of the matter.
Correct. Oh, we're talking about Inman.
I'm talking about Mr. Walker's statement too.
Respectfully, Your Honor, under 801, a declarant is a person who makes a statement. Hearsay is a statement other than one made by the declarant while testifying.
While testifying.
Yes, so it's not hearsay.
He's testifying
He's,
today.
hold on, Ms. Walker.
I'm sorry.
The statement that he made out of court is hearsay.
He-
If he's going to say, I said this 6 years ago, he is the declarant making that statement. Now, it's hearsay, Mr. Bates. Now, again, I'm going to hear it anyway, because I've got to make a determination if it's being offered for the truth of the matter.
Your Honor, if I can just briefly, this is,
This is a classic example of an argument we've had for years. So go ahead and put your
Okay.
position in, Mr. Bates.
the-
I understand he's the declarant and he's in court now.
That's right.
But him saying, I said something X out of court, if it's being offered for the truth of the matter, is hearsay.
and respectfully, the reason it's not is because the witness is here to be cross-examined.
That's not an exception to hearsay.
We're getting in the weeds here on an
well,
issue. I'm gonna hear what he has to say.
Okay,
Please
but-
proceed with the questioning, Mr. Bates.
What did you tell, you called investigator
I called
and,
investigator that morning and asked him where the remains were found. And he said, up there near the freeway where you always wanted to look. And I said, exactly where they, and he described by the Verizon Tower. And I said to him, those are Holly's remains. And he said to me back, he says, well, that hasn't been determined yet. I said, well, they're Holly's. Because that's where I always wanted to look with him and Terry Dykes near the freeway, because that's where this map led. That's where she should be. Okay?
in your work prior to the finding of the remains, did you discuss with anyone your belief that the remains were?
Yes, co-workers, friends, TBI agents,
What made you say the remains would be where they?
because her phone tracks to the freeway, the Shallow Road Tower, I think it's 109-6 of the tower, section 1. It tracks to there, and it spends about 25 minutes there. It gets there around 8:30, and it departs that area around right before 9 o'clock toward the Cox Road Tower. Her phone goes straight there and spends about 25 minutes there, and that's where her remains were found, in that cell section of the Shallow Road Tower.
You produced a map at some point.
Yes, I did, in
And
2012.
when did you produce the map?
2012. After I rode with AT&T to figure out where the cell sections broke at, it took me about 3 months because I had to drive the routes with a stopwatch to make sure that things matched, because it doesn't take much that if you drive the wrong roadway, you end off the timeline. You have to make the timeline match to where you're in this cell section and this cell section, and the pings match also on the top of it. You have to make it match. And when you match those things up, there's one route.
Did you determine, did you use the victim's belongings in attaching this map?
Yes, I did, because when it exits that area, and it exits the area right around 9 o'clock, it comes back across the freeway, because it's on Cox Road Tower at that time, section 3, and it comes back across the freeway, and it looks like the person was throwing the stuff out the driver's side, driving on, I think it's Yellow Springs Road, driving south. And they threw it out for about a mile, or maybe 3/4 of a mile, and they stopped as they went south.
All right, thank you all for your patience with that. The storm wasn't nearly as severe as we thought, but it's better to be safe. And let me also state for both parties and Mr. Adams, I zoom in Miss Susan Jones, the capital case attorney, who's unable to be here. So if you see me mess with my computer, it's getting Miss Jones to be able to hear the proceedings. You may proceed, sir.
Mr. Walker, you prepared the map.
Yes, sir.
You identified first where you thought the remains would be,
Yes,
and that was validated.
yes,
Did you apply your experience and training to make sense out of the locations of the cell phone and the discarded evidence from there until the last evidence was found?
exactly. I always thought that the route ended at the Gooch Creek because her lunchbox was found at the creek on Gooch Creek Road, the creek there. And when I talked to the person that found the lunchbox, they said that it was,
Objection, Your Honor.
okay, I take,
What's the objection?
Hearsay.
He was about to testify to something somebody else said, so objection sustained, but you can rephrase your question.
And just, an expert is allowed to use hearsay in reaching conclusions that would otherwise be inadmissible.
All right, he's responded that this is part of his conclusion. Ms. Wyrick?
Yes, sir.
All right, so objection's overruled. He may proceed.
okay. The person that found the lunchbox said that it was, there's a huge culvert there that washes south. And I was under the impression that that was probably in the route where all the large items were thrown, because her lunchbox was found there. It was hanging on a stick, like they had thrown it out, but the strap of the lunchbox had caught a stick, so it didn't wash down the creek. And I believe that that was where all of her large items were, which was missing a biology book, a purse, her notebook, and her lunchbox. And I asked Terry Dicus, I said, I think that's the end of the route. There was people around me that disagreed. When I went down to the creek and asked Dicus if I could go look, and within half an hour I found her notebook. It had been washed down the creek about 75 yards up in the branches. I found her notebook.
When was this?
I don't know the exact date. It was probably a month into the investigation.
Okay.
Because it looked to me like, from the cell records, that the phone traveled to the freeway, paused, and then came back south to that area. And I said that would make sense to me, thinking that if the person abducted her and had this stuff in his vehicle, that would be the best place to get rid of it, is this creek with the big large culvert, and the creek was washing down in the woods.
Have you been physically to the places along this route on your map?
Many times, because I had to figure the map out by driving it, by overlapping, like I said, by overlapping cell sections, pings, drive times. You have to make the roadways match. You can't be out in the middle of nowhere. You have to make it all match. So, no, I've driven this route more than 50 times.
Are you able to determine general location of Mr. Terry Britt's home on the map that you've prepared?
Yes, it's just north of it.
And-
Because I told Terry Dicus, when I was developing this map and thinking the end of the route was where the creek is, I said, your suspect probably lives in this area, because they're gonna have to know this road. This is a very rural road, Gooch Creek, where the creek is. You would have to drive that. Not the average person out there, even the average person in Decatur County would not know this road. It's a very secluded road. I said, the person probably drives this, and they wouldn't know where that creek's at. And I told early on, I said, I'd say in 2012, I said, your suspect likely lives in this area.
And I'm gonna hand you a purple marker on the map that you've provided. Can you identify this? And, yes, on the exhibit itself.
What do you want me to,
I apologize.
talking about this map here?
Yes, hold on, Mr. Walker. You have a map with the abduction investigation, and a timeline, part of a
Yes.
3-page exhibit.
Yes,
First, and this is all data you prepared.
yes, I prepared this, yes.
And I move to enter it into exhibit.
Objections, Ms. Wire, moving this?
No.
Or without objections, we'll mark this as Exhibit 5, 3-page document.
Now, on the map portion of exhibit 5, can you place the circle where you identified years ago where you thought the suspect
Would live or does live?
would live first?
I would say a circle, I would say a quarter of a mile around that end of the route on Gooch Creek Road. A circle like that
And
right
can
there,
you show okay?
circle like that.
And can you put a square where you understand Mr. Britt's home to be?
Square over here.
And show the general, please. In arriving at this, did you use your experience and training of tracking fugitives for a living?
Yes,
You sent Exhibit 5 to the TBI after the remains were found.
yes, there's a reason for that.
Why?
Because of the 8 months since she was taken down to the river and thrown in the river, and I completely disagree with that based on my timeline, that this timeline is from 8 AM to 9:30, and she was likely killed around 8:45, my timeline. And they said she was taken down there, the vague ideas. My fear was this, is that I knew, that I created a map like this and put it in the file. I don't know where it ended up at, but I gave it to TBI, Terry Dykes,
Before the remains were found.
way before, 2012. And my fear was this, is that this goes to trial, and it's a potential death penalty case, and there's convicted. Every lawyer in Harvard and Yale hates death penalty cases, they're gonna be all over it, and they're gonna dig through the file. And I had a moral obligation to bring this up, because not only that, but I was fearing Brady material, that later on, they're gonna dig through the file, comb through it, find my map in the file, and say, why did I not bring up Brady material? Because I had something that says something very different than what was being accused. And I did not want to personally be liable for Brady material, or my agency to be liable for Brady material. So that's why I typed this up and sent it to TBI to remind them there is a different theory in the file of the timeline when this occurred, a very different theory that matches the evidence. It matches what her brother said that morning. It matches what the neighbor, Mr. Barnes, said that morning. It matches what Mr. Barnes' mother said that morning. It matches the timeline, and it matches the evidence on the roadways and the end of the route. And it matches the main suspect that was previous to these guys. Okay? That's was my fear of Brady material.
How were you treated after sending that?
How I was treated. After I sent it to TBI, TBI spread rumors at the FBI about me, that I was some kind of liberal, anti-death penalty person. They spread rumors at my own agency about me. They filed an internal affairs complaint on me, my only one in a 35-year 4-agency career. TBI filed an internal affairs complaint on me. Said that I developed a map after her remains were found, but nobody knows that's true. My agency investigated it. I was exonerated, found no fault. They know that the map was created way before that. But I was called to a meeting with TBI. My agency attorneys told me I don't need to go to the meeting, I could ignore it. But I went to the TBI meeting, and the supervisor, he was sitting right over here yesterday. He treated me like I was some kind of criminal, because I had to sit out in the lobby and wait. Then I was called in, and he spent 34 minutes chastising me, giving me some sermon he prepared about how wrong I was.
And who was this?
He's their supervisor. He was here yesterday. I can't remember his name.
Okay.
He was sitting right here yesterday. And I took the map to talk about the map. I said, I took the map to this meeting. I wanted to talk about the timeline of how this map could match these suspects, because I know nothing about these suspects. Okay? That's what I want to talk about. I didn't get to talk about it. Mr. Frizzell, their so-called cell phone expert, was also in the meeting. He asked me a couple of questions. He says, how fast was the vehicle traveling north? And I said about 33, 34 miles an hour, and I said about 34, 35 south. And he asked me, he says, well, you're wrong on this because the ping on that last ping on Holly's residence is at her residence, the last ping off the Parsons Road tower. And I said, no, I had to explain to him how to read a ping off of a 2G tower. I said, that ping is not there. You have to swing it around, and the timeline matches it being at the creek on Gooch Road. That's the end of the route. That's the last ping when they're throwing the stuff in the creek. So that was what, and I even offered the map to them when I left, and it was refused. Okay, so that's how I was treated after I turned this into TBI. I was not, it was highly unprofessional when it occurred.
Did you ever find or publicize fault in Clint Bobo's help to law enforcement?
No, I interviewed Clint Bobo at least 4 times, a couple of times 3.5 to 4 hours, a couple of times. He was always honest. He's a little timid, a little unsure of himself, but he was always very honest. He was very direct in giving the description of the individual that abducted his sister, how they walked across the yard. His timeline, what he talked about that morning, matched the neighbor's Mr. Barnes' testimony and matched Mr. Barnes' mother's testimony. Clint Bobo never lied. I'd never, ever once found him to be untruthful. He was a little unsure of himself, and I interviewed him. He added some things as it went along, because I remember one point in the interview I was talking to Terry Dicus about when they were walking across the yard with Holly, the suspect walked across the yard with Holly. He says, well, I was talking to my mother at that time, and I said, okay, so I can narrow that down to a specific time on the cell records. It was like 7:56.
At some point, you understood there was a trial in this case,
Yes.
and did you ever see the TUI letter sent to Susan Gibson?
I don't know what that is.
Okay. Talk about your communications with Zach Adams' defense attorneys prior to trial. So, how many months or years before
Okay.
trial did you sit down and?
I met with the prosecution about a year before. They came to my office. I talked to my legal counsel and the U.S. Attorney's Office prior to that, before saying anything to anyone. I needed my agency and the U.S. Attorney's Office on the same page. And they came to my office, brought 2 attorneys, and I went over what I knew about the case. Okay. Months had passed. About 3 months, probably before the trial, I testified. I got a subpoena from the prosecution and the defense. And I didn't hear anything from the defense. The night before I testified, the night before, about 7 p.m., I met with the defense. I had an AUSA with me.
Let's
And
stop
I
right here.
Okay.
Had you sent emails or have you received emails from Mr. Adams' attorneys?
No, I had not communicated other than we met the night before. I mean,
Private investigators?
no, nobody. I had not talked to the defense. I was willing to. The problem is I cannot reach out and do that. As a law enforcement person, I cannot reach out and talk to the defense.
Okay.
My agency said it's fine, go tell the truth. The U.S. Attorney's Office said the same thing. I had no problem with it. I cannot reach out and do that.
7 p.m. the night before you testify.
7 p.m. the night before I testified.
Where is this meeting at? A conference room?
At a hotel room. It's one just south of here. It's 8. I mean, Super 8 or something like that. Hotel. It's a hotel room.
All right. Who's in the meeting?
The AUSA is with me. His defense counsel's there.
Which one?
I don't know her name. I just got to think of it.
Well, it's female.
Female.
Okay.
Female. I had a lot to talk about, a tremendous amount, about how this all works. That I didn't want to be a cell phone expert because in my agency that's a very complicated, big thing. I knew certain areas. I wanted to talk about that. I talked about what I knew about the case, the history of it. She was kind of following along. She was really relaxed. She was drinking wine. And I was like, I have testified in 4 to 5 previous capital murder trials prior to this one. And I was thinking, these guys are gonna get convicted, they're gonna get the death penalty, and she is way out of her league. That's what I thought. Because she was not comprehending what I was trying to explain.
I'm gonna object on him offering his opinion as to the standards of a lawyer.
Objection sustained.
That's fine, Your Honor. Did you ever communicate to her the distinction between being a cell phone expert and a tracking a fugitive with 2G network expert?
Yes,
Did Ms. Thompson take notes on this when you were telling her?
I don't have, no, she didn't seem to be taking notes. I don't recall.
How long did the meeting last?
About an hour.
You then came to court and sat right where you're sitting the next day.
Yes,
And Ms. Thompson attempted to certify you as an expert in cell phone expert.
exactly.
Your conclusions are identified in Exhibit 4 and 5. And are they the product of your experience and training?
Yes,
Your pre-remains beliefs were validated.
the map is accurate.
Were there other items of physical discovery that you discussed with TBI in this case? Was there any other physical evidence that you discussed with them?
The prosecutor discussed the hair evidence.
The state discussed with you hair.
I discussed it with them. When they met with me in my office here before the trial, Jennifer Nichols, Jennifer Thompson, the name of the attorney. Jennifer Nichols said that's the first time she'd heard about it, the hair evidence.
And what is this hair evidence?
It's some microscopic hair that was found in Terry Britt's vehicle that matches Holly's. It was tested by the FBI lab.
That is not accurate, and the state is going to object to that statement. That is an absolute
All right, hold on,
mischaracterization
Mr. Walker.
of this file.
All right, the objection specifically, besides it not being not accurate, what's the objection?
That it
Okay.
is wholly and completely inaccurate.
They can
Response.
That's for cross-examination. If something's not accurate, that's how you,
All right, you can address it on cross-examination.
Yes, sir.
what did you tell General Nichols?
That I was,
Objection to the hearsay.
It's not offered for the truth of the matter, Your
All
Honor.
right, I'm gonna hear what he has to say.
I told her that the suspect was Terry Britt. He matched the physical description. I talked about the hair evidence. I talked about the map, the route that the phone traveled, how I mapped it. I think what else I talked about? Pretty much what I knew about the case.
Did you mention this hair?
Yes,
And what did you tell her?
I told her there was a microscopic hair that matched Holly's, same color that the FBI lab looked at.
And you have understanding of what happened regarding distinctions between Holly's hair and the hair found on Mr. Britt's?
What, say that again?
You have awareness of the distinctions between the hair and Holly's hair? Or you have any awareness of that?
Distinction between them? No, I just know, I was on the conference call when the FBI called and talked to Terry Dykus and Art, the FBI. I was on the conference call with the FBI when they were talking about it.
And when you're discussing this with General Nichols, what was the reaction?
She said she never heard about it before.
Thank you for being here.
cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. So it's your testimony that,
Hold on, let me ask you, hold on one second. Are we done with this board now? Are you gonna use the board, Ms. Wyrick, asking Mr. Walker to do anything on the
I'm
board?
not gonna use the board, no, no,
Okay.
no.
Let's get this out of the way, Ms. Franks.
When were you last on the case in your official capacity as an employee of the United States Marshal Service? Because here you're just, today you're here as a
Citizen?
citizen. Just,
Right.
I got some concerns and I need the court to hear my concerns. There's no TUI letter allowing you to be here today, right?
No.
So when you retire from a federal agency, you don't still have to get a TUI letter to
I was-
testify in court
I was given permission to testify
by the U.S. Marshal Service?
in the original trial. In
But
this
not
trial,
today?
Not today.
Okay.
I'm
So-
a private citizen.
You're a private concerned citizen. When was your last involvement in this case as an employee of the United States Marshal Service?
It was, I want to be accurate.
How about 2013?
I believe 2013.
Okay, 2013 was the last time
Yeah.
that Mr. Walker.
I don't know the month of 2013, sometime in
That's fine,
2013.
but the year 2013.
Yeah,
All right. And is that when you retired?
no. Retired in 21.
You retired in 21. You were taken off of the case in 2013.
No, I was just had other duties. I was not taken off of the case.
Reassigned
I-
to other things.
I participated in the case as an assistant, and I was busy doing other things. Other things happened.
Okay. So in 2013, you're no longer involved in briefings on the Holly Bobo case.
That's, yes,
Yes, you were not, or yes, you were?
I was not.
Okay. So it's in your rear view mirror and you're moving on and working on other cases until the trial came up in 2017.
Yes,
Right, okay. Are you aware of the fact that new information came into the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation after 2013?
am I aware? No. I was called a couple of times and asked some questions along the way by the investigators about people I've interviewed, but I was not working actively on the case.
No. But I know you weren't working on it, but are you aware that new information was made available, became known after 2013?
I was hearing rumors.
I'm sorry?
Rumors.
Okay.
About like how she was taken down to the river, rumors. I was
Okay.
hearing things
But
like
you
that.
weren't involved in any of that?
No.
Right. Do you know who Anthony Phoenix is?
No.
Do you know who James Darnell is?
No.
Do you know who Carl Statler is?
No.
Corey Rivers?
No.
Sean Cooper?
No.
Chris Swift?
No.
Jason Kirk?
No.
William Bell? You know who any of these people are?
No.
Okay. And it's your testimony that you knew where Miss Bobo's body was going to be found. Is that what I'm understanding?
I knew it was going to be in cell section 1 of the Shallow Road Tower. Well, I didn't know her body was going to be there. I know that was she was taken and probably killed at.
You knew. Okay.
But yeah,
So you went looking for her.
many times.
With whom?
Terry Dykus, the chief deputy of the county, with a neighbor that lived up there. One time I was up there looking and a neighbor was there.
Did you
Asked
find
my-
her?
No, of course I didn't find her.
Right.
Because it is a huge area. It is wooded. It's vast.
It's a massive, huge, wooded area,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And am I understanding your testimony that it is your expert opinion that her cell phone was with her when she was murdered?
Yes.
What do you base that on?
I base that on, it was probably in her right back pocket when she was abducted.
I'm not asking about when she was abducted. When the bullet was put to the back of her head by James Autry and Zach Adams, is it your testimony to this court that her phone was on her at that time?
I'm not going to comment to that because I don't believe that.
Okay, then in the world that you're functioning in, it's your belief that Terry Britt Let's just say it. Let's just
Okay.
bring it out. Terry Britt put that bullet in the back of her head. Is that your testimony? That's what you're gonna tell this judge?
I believe.
Answer my question.
Your Honor, the witness is allowed.
Give him an opportunity to answer
I do believe that,
That Terry Britt put a bullet in the back of her head.
yes.
Okay. So when he did that, for this hypothetical scenario of yours, was her phone on her?
It was either on her or in his vehicle.
Okay. Okay. On her, still back in her pants pocket?
Well, since the phone traveled south, it was probably in the vehicle,
In the vehicle. Okay, which vehicle?
his small truck.
Okay. Are you aware that the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation wired his home?
I'm aware.
All right. Cell phones, landlines, they were listening to everything.
Yes,
Okay. Are you aware, where was Terry Britt's phone that day?
probably at home.
But you don't know.
It didn't register on the tower, so it didn't get any calls.
Where was Zach Adams' phone that day?
I
Do you
believe-
know?
I believe it is residence on the Cox Road Tower, from what I understand.
Okay. Where was Shane Austin's phone that day?
They were not near Holly's.
Really?
Yeah, I know that.
Where was Jason Autry's phone that day?
Not near Holly's.
Sir?
Not near Holly's.
And where was Dylan Adams' phone that day?
Not near Holly's.
And what are you basing those answers on?
Looking through the tower dumps and reading every single phone in the county, I mapped every phone on the AT&T and Verizon to match them to see if anybody's matched Holly's travel. And there was only one phone of a lady that lived up north near the freeway that semi-matched the route.
You got information from AT&T?
The tower dumps, I got them from Terry Dykus,
You got them from TBI.
TBI.
When was Terry Dykus removed from this case because he lost objectivity?
I do not know.
Terry Dykus called you in, let me make sure I get my years right here. Did you watch the whole trial after you testified?
I didn't watch any of it.
Okay, so would it surprise you to know that, well, let me not get questions confused with other questions. Terry Dykus asked you to go interview Terry Britt, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, and tell me about that. What year was that?
I think it was 2013. Spring of 2013, maybe, April?
Okay,
I don't know. I don't remember exactly. It's been a while.
in 2013,
I think it was 2013.
before you'd moved on to other cases, or were you still on this case?
If I was in and out of this case the whole time, I was never 100% assigned to it. Okay, I was never 100% on the case. I was just assisting TBI with when things they needed stuff. When John Mayer asked for the cell phone tracking, we worked on that, and there was things along the way that we would assist with. Terry Dykus called and asked if I could interview Terry Britt. I said, sure.
Did you know at the time that Terry Dykus had been taken off this case?
did not
because
know
he'd
that.
lost? I'm sorry, can I finish my question? Did you know that he'd been taken off the case when he asked you to do that?
I did not know that.
Okay. And the U.S. Marshal Service has a cell phone task force, correct?
Individuals signed to districts that do cell phone work.
Were you one of those?
In my district in Eastern Texas, I was the person that did it for my district, yes.
Okay. What about after that?
No, I was assigned to something different. I was in a different program.
When you were here in West Tennessee, what was your assignment? Were you on the cell phone task force?
No, I was assigned to the Strategic National Stockpile.
Which
and
is-
and the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force.
Okay. And the strategic, let me make sure I get it right, the Strategic National Stockpile, that's the National Repository of Medical Essential Supplies, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So Terry Dykus asks you to go to a penal institution and interview who you two believed to be the murderer of Holly Bobo.
Yes,
Okay. You did that,
yes.
and what happened?
Well, I'm gonna tell you what I expected. I fully expected him to tell me to go away and not say a word. That's been my experience with, when you're accusing somebody of something. And I told Terry Dykus, I said, sure, I'll go talk to him. I didn't know, he put it like this. He says, you know him, You work the wire on his house. Go see if he wants to work out some kind of deal on the Holly Bobo abduction murder case.
And you'd taken many statements prior to that from suspected murderers.
Yes.
How many?
I have no idea.
Me either. 50, 100, 1,000?
No, let's just do 20.
How many?
20.
20. Okay?
I was just going to see if he wanted, I was not there to take a statement. I was not there to get a confession. I was there to see if he just wanted to work out some kind of deal because they're talking about charging Janet Britt. That's all it was. I just said, I'll go see if he wants to work out a deal. That's all. It was something very simple.
Who had authorized you to go see if he wanted to work out a deal?
Nobody authorized me. I can go interview a prisoner if I want to.
Okay. So you go, and I think, I want to make sure I get it correct. At trial, you indicated that you were not there trying to obtain, what did you call it? Factual information?
No, testimonial evidence.
Testimonial evidence, that's what it is. Define that for me. What is testimonial evidence? I'm not
That's when you're
familiar.
going to interview somebody so that the information they tell you, you can use against them in trial.
Okay,
That's what that is.
okay. And so you're going to interview Terry Britt to get testimonial evidence or not to get testimonial evidence?
I'm just there to ask him if he wants to work out a deal with TBI. That's all. Just does he want to talk to keep his wife from being charged with a criminal charge? That's all. Do you want to work out a deal with TBI? And he said, tell him what we know about him, see if he wants to work out a deal. And once I went through the details on what we knew about how he's involved in the case, he admitted to it.
He admitted to murdering Holly Bobo.
Yes. He said, it sounds like you got it figured out. I'll plead to 20 years. I don't want to die in jail, but I want to be in a different jail.
Could another interpretation of that be that he was being a smart aleck?
Your
No,
Honor,
no.
if the witness is not able to testify of his interpretation of Ms. Thompson's preparedness, the witness should not be able to testify to this. Or I would request leave to reinstitute on redirect the client's
You'll get an
interpretation.
opportunity to question him
Okay.
again.
No.
That there's no way that's a possibility. That he was just
I did not.
messing with you.
Nope, didn't pick up on that.
Okay, after your, what did you say, 5 previous experiences of taking statements?
I don't know how many I've taken over the years. I've taken quite a few. I spent 35 years in law enforcement.
I know you did, and I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm
All right.
trying to get a picture of your experience. And I thought a minute ago when I asked you how many you had taken, you said 5.
At least 20. No, I said
Okay,
at least 20.
Okay, so I did miss you. All right, 20, all right. So he confesses to you.
Not a confession, just an admission. It's the difference. A confession is when you write out a full statement, okay? An admission is when you're like, yeah, I did that. That's not necessarily a confession. A confession, you get into the details.
So you get the admission first, and then you get the confession.
I didn't want the confession. I wanted him to stop right there. I told him to stop. TBI needs to talk to him. I'm not there to do that. TBI needs to talk to him. I stopped him right there. I got up to leave, and he implied, he says, hey, can you get me out of here because I need to show you something? I think he was implying he wants to show me where her remains were. And I said, you need
You
to.
think that's what he was saying?
Yes.
You don't know?
I'm pretty sure that's what he was saying.
Okay.
I'm not an idiot.
Did you Mirandize him?
No.
How was anybody gonna use that in court?
I wasn't there to get anything from court. I've told y'all that. I
You
wasn't
just-
there, I wasn't there to get a statement. I was there to see if he wanted to talk to TBI. And he said, yeah, I'll talk to TBI to keep Janet Britt from being charged. He wanted to do that.
Okay. When did it occur to you, maybe I should have Mirandized him?
Well, after he starts talking, I just wanted to leave. I said, I'm leaving. I'm not there to, I did not want to be anywhere involved in him giving some kind of Miranda statement to his court. That's not my purpose. That's not my job.
So you went back to the treehouse and you told Terry Dykes, I got him to confess, go get him?
I wrote a report and gave it to TBI.
You wrote a report? You didn't call Terry Dykes and say, I just got Terry Britt to to admit, not confess, admit to killing Holly Bobo.
I don't recall calling him. I don't recall that.
Did you call your supervisor and say, I just cracked the case?
No, I didn't do that either. I just went and wrote a report on it. this is not the biggest event I've ever had in law enforcement, so, I mean,
I'm not trying to
It's not.
imply that it is, but it is a really big deal.
I know
To the
that.
Bobo family.
I understand that, but to me, there's, many people get murdered and you investigate many different things. So, I just did what I normally would do. I go write a report, I give a report to the agency.
When Mr. Lewis and Mr. Frizzell came to talk with you, and that's the man's name that you were, Mark Lewis, does that ring a bell?
I guess, I know.
Okay. They talked to you about this report that you did, correct?
They didn't talk to me about the report.
Was it a, may I approach, Your Honor?
You may, well, are you gonna show them Exhibit 5?
No, sir.
Okay,
I don't think this has been marked.
that's just for, okay.
You will
Witnesses,
correct me.
witnesses being handed a document.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Can
Okay,
we
yes.
see what they're?
Exhibit 5. Does he have it?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the report they came to talk to you about?
I went to them. They didn't come to me, I went to their office.
Oh,
And-
you called them and said, I need to come talk with you?
No, my agency said that TBI wanted to talk to me. My agency said, I don't have to talk to them. And I said, no, I would like to clarify the map, I would like to get into the details and talk about this, is what I would like to do. And I went to TBI,
This witness is referring to Exhibit 5.
this map, I went to them, and we didn't get to talk about it. All I got was a lecture for half an hour on how I was wrong and incompetent by the supervisor. It was recorded. That conversation, that is recorded by TBI. That whole conversation was recorded. It's
Yes.
34 minutes long.
Yes,
Yes,
yes. We're gonna listen to it.
yeah. We didn't discuss,
Okay, let's,
I mean, it was just like, he didn't want to talk about the map.
we're gonna play something to see if you recognize this. We're not gonna play it all, but I wanna hear if this is what you're referring to make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Your Honor, I'd ask under completeness to play the entire recording.
That's fine.
Well, at this point, I think it's just for authentication, so let's just,
Okay.
let's go through the steps.
We don't need such a big room, but it's the.
Is it just us?
Just us three?
Joe's not gonna be here?
No.
I want to talk to Joe.
Is that your voice?
Well, I mean,
I believe it is.
That's okay.
this needs to be something else later on.
No, I know.
I'm worried.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear anything.
We can.
Is that your voice? Asking, is it just the three of us?
Yes,
Okay. You recognize this?
yes.
All right, Your Honor, at this time I would ask that this be marked as the next numbered exhibit and
Objections, Mr. Bates?
None, Your Honor.
I will mark this, are we at Exhibit 6 now? Mark it as Exhibit 6.
Do we file the late file with the, I can get that flash drive?
would that be easier?
I'm sorry, say that
We'll
once again.
substitute this for with a flash
Could
drive
I
later.
file it as late file with a flash drive of the audio?
Yes, that's my preference throughout today, the proceeding is that we follow up with the court on digital evidence marked in a unique container, a thumb drive or external drive of some form.
You suggesting we have one and then mark, and label them in the, inside on the files, Exhibit 1, 2, 3, 4?
If possible, the size might exceed the scope and it has to be multiple ones.
You're satisfied with that, Mr. Boyano? Ms. Wyrick, you good
Yes,
with that as
that's
well?
fine.
C2? All right. But we will designate this audio recording as Exhibit 6.
Sure.
All right. You're going to play this.
Yes, sir.
If it becomes to a point where I can't understand it,
Yes, sir.
then I'm gonna just let you know, I'll review it again later.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. minutes?
I think.
Explain what I was seeing.
It's longer,
I like the, good seeing you, John.
it's longer than 34, but I think that the relevant part is within the first 34 minutes.
That's fine. Mr. Bates wants it all played, so we'll play it off.
See it all?
Question I gotta ask first, because I won't hurt the road. That's the reason I brought this up in the room. She was allegedly helping me. Is that theory?
Well, we can't get into specifics of what we know right now.
Oh, okay.
That's
I don't,
you're all right.
I just,
Let me start off here, just, I don't want this to be any more comfortable than it is. Okay, I mean, the goal of this,
All right, at some point, explain to the court who's in this room and who's talking.
Yes, Your Honor. The witness is talking, Mark Lewis, with the TBI, and Mike Frizzell with the TBI are the three people in the room. Mr. Lewis is the one talking now, kind of setting the stage.
You said Mike Frizzell?
Frizzell, F-R-I-Z-Z-E-L-L, and he will testify later.
Your Honor, could we get a date and time that this recording took place?
October 23rd, 2014. Does that sound right? October 23rd, 2014?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Walker, for answering out loud. Okay, you may proceed.
and almost everything that we do, really everything we do, specifically this meeting, is to make sure we get the truth. If we haven't missed something, if there's not something out there that you have, that we're unaware of, or anybody needs to give us, it will help us to figure out what the truth is, or what happened.
I'll tell you what I know.
Okay. Now, hold on a second. And it kind of stems from the email. The email you sent us is sort of what got the ball rolling on that. I wish you sent it. I wish you called and talked to us about it before you sent it. But it is what it is. And if you feel that way, we're not here to talk anybody out of what they believe. We do know that the Marshal Service has already talked to you about some stuff, and that's their business. That's between you and them. They did. I feel only fair, out of fairness to you, questions that they have already asked you, or that we've been told they asked you. They're really good questions. I would like to go down. Mike would like to go down that list ourselves with you, because we don't know the answers to these. They did give us the list, but for whatever reason,
They told me to give you the answers.
they did not give us the answers.
I was told I was going.
But now let me back up a little bit. Mike is with our technical services.
Yeah, I remember.
He's
I actually had it in my piece of paper from.
He is one of our phone experts. He is the phone expert case agent on this case.
615-521. Yeah. 081. That's it.
And which you know me from back in the day, I was a field agent back then, working on the case. I think
I didn't know the best way to send it. I talked to Kira, and she said email would be the best way to send it. That's why I sent it.
Okay. Well, the problem is when you send them an email, it's in an email, it's kind of not really work product, and kind of official. But that's okay. We'll get around that.
That's what that's all.
Yeah, exactly. That's all we want.
I don't.
Now, my role has changed somewhat since we last saw each other. Well, maybe it hasn't. It's sometime during the early stages, I got promoted. I'm the assistant special agent in charge for the field
You got
division.
promoted again?
No, well, maybe you already knew.
I think you got promoted
Okay.
when it was involved in the investigation. Hello?
That's showing us.
Hello? Somebody watching that?
No, probably not. It would show his dog, you know, but,
No, we're gonna use that.
oh, it's kind of like an automatic thing, no, but,
I don't know if you get the.
it may be, let me say that, we're trying that off.
No, I just want, I wasn't even gonna say anything, that was the phone thing, and I heard about it Curly's got rumors and stuff, but once they found her remains, or, we thought they would be located, that's what I said. I probably should speak up.
Yeah, that's fine, that's
And
good.
I called Ricky Edmonds on that Friday, and he gave me a general location where the remains were found. I said, well, that's gonna be Holly Skull, 2 days before our house. That's where we predicted it was gonna be.
But no, answer your question, I'm not going to promote it again. We just didn't want to send a whole bunch of people down here. I think we can get this resolved.
Okay.
There's not one person who knows everything about the case. The closest thing to that is the phone stuff, which would probably be mine. I was there day one. I've always been involved in the case in some form or fashion, but we didn't need to send, we have like a whole team working on this now. Things have changed dramatically or drastically since you were probably last involved in this. It's like a total different investigation from 2 years ago, completely. You wouldn't even recognize it. We wish a prosecutor could have come with us. Since then, a new district attorney has been elected. Not only did we lose our DA, we also lost the lead prosecutor, Beth. She went to the district attorney's office.
The new guy gonna prosecute, the new prosecutor.
But yet, we don't really know yet. Yeah, he's gonna be involved. He's a district attorney, but we don't know who the lead team is gonna be. I would tell you if I knew, but we don't know for sure how that's gonna be. Again, I say that to say this. I wish the prosecutor could have been here for whatever reason. We don't have one here. Normally, what I want this to be is more like a trial prep for clarification purposes. We don't want to be surprised on the stand.
That's why I brought
And
this
we don't want you surprised on the stand.
I don't want to testify in the case, and that's why I brought this up. I brought it up because I said, there's a lot of people that know about this information and were involved in the case in the first 2 years, and we kept saying over and over again, she was taken to the freeway, it's been half an hour, then the phone came back, FBI said the same thing. All I've been trying to talk to, all week, for some reason he's unavailable.
Well, what I would like to do, normally we don't do this. I don't want this to be a written statement. I like to turn this into just making some notes. Normally, I don't like doing this, but under these circumstances, and especially since the prosecutor can't be here and they are brand new, they're going to want us, I'd like to record this. You got a problem with that? I didn't know. All right.
I just want the truth out, Mark, that's all.
That's all?
I was involved a little bit part of the case. Y'all asked me to look at the phone stuff early because the Marshal Service has access to direct knowledge. And,
Deputy Marshal, correct?
I'm a senior inspector.
Senior inspector. I may just have everybody introduce themselves. All right. Okay, we're recording. This is Assistant Special Agent in Charge of the Field Division of West Tennessee, Mark Lewis. We are at the Memphis Field Office in Memphis, Tennessee. Today's date is Thursday, October 23rd, 2014. The time is approximately 10:07. Two other law enforcement officials in the room now. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Senior Inspector John Walker, United States Marshals. Special Agent Mike Frizzell, Technical Services, DEI.
Okay. Okay, I want to sort of guide this, but you feel free to jump in if I'm wrong or I say something in error. Again, I want to reiterate, the goal of this meeting and the goal of this investigation is to be sure that we get the truth about what happened to Holly Bobo. Point blank. There's no other way to say it. So if we've missed something or we need something that will help the case, that will help get justice for Holly Bobo, we're going to do what we need to do that. And if we're wrong about something, we need to know it. If you're wrong about something, we need to know that too. Okay? And I stated before we turn the recording on, I think you're aware of this, the Marshal Service did provide us with some questions I think you guys have already met and talked about. And what I would like to do is just peruse through these questions one by one, and because these are pretty good questions, I think that may speed the process up. And let's just give you a comment on these and help us out. All right. Okay, the document in question is going to be the email. I think that's the way this is worded. So why did Walker create this document? The document in question will be the email.
I created it because when I heard the location of her remains from the news media, well, from Ricky, and I called Ricky in on Friday when the skull was found and had been identified, and I said, well, that's located. Ricky told me it was located 400 yards of the woods, north of the Verizon Tower, near the sawmill, north side of the freeway, between the Shaw Road and Cottonwood Tower. And I said, well, that's what we predicted to be on loan 2.5 years ago. The map that I made, I maybe 2.5 years ago, and TBI has a copy of that map. Probably 5x5 foot map that I drew out. Because that's where I've consistently said that we need to focus on searching this map. This map was the that map was made 2.5 years ago. And I sent the email because the location of remains confirmed where we thought it would be. And that she was probably killed the first hour because the FBI vehicle analysis said the same thing. That's why I read the document. Because I didn't want to get to trial, somebody bring this up, and I ended up going to trial, say, trying to explain this. I don't know what I'm thinking about now.
That report was new to us. I mean, that was what, about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, something like that. So do you have any, does the board have any additional information, i.e. case files, reports, et cetera, associated with this information? Is there anything else?
The only other things I have is I have some notes, that when we interviewed, a lot of Clint and Holly's friends in the beginning, because the behavior analysis said that the person was 20 years of age. Of course, after we interviewed everybody that's 20 years of age, they said, no, it's mentally 20 years of age, so trying to figure that out. But I interviewed a lot of Clint and Holly's classmates, those notes, but those notes didn't lead anywhere. Cell phone stuff, I just have very few things that were remaining. Most of the things y'all emailed to me, or I've worked on when I was in your office.
Anything we don't have?
No, you have everything.
What materials did Walker use to generate this document? Again, I'm referring to the email.
Well, the email was generated off of the map I created 2.5 years ago, and the map was created off of working close with AT&T, the FBI, and my own agency, dealing with cell phones.
And this may not make a lot of that, but does Walker still have those materials?
Yeah, I didn't throw anything away, just a few things I'll say. I'll give you copies.
I'm not going to go figure, but I'll get the phone stuff on. I'm not a phone expert, I'll tell you that now. We'll talk. But does Walker have any additional information that he thinks would be discovered?
No.
Why did Walker send this document? What was his purpose behind it?
I felt that needed to come out now, that that was a different period the first 2 years. Well, in the other side, cell community. I don't know if that's the case, it's just that everybody in the law enforcement community saying she's held for 3 days for videotape, and I'm going, I see something different.
Why did Walker make it a point in his email to mention the issue of discovery and Brady?
Because I think the defense attorney should already have this, if they've gotten the discovery, they've already gotten this information. And I bring it up because we need to do it now instead of them using it as a defense mechanism. And if it is true, the theory of this, it could be, they could bring it out as possibly.
In fairness, these are the questions they asked you.
Yes,
I
yeah.
think it's a little weird for me reading these like these, but I wanted just to really have the answers.
I thought they.
Did someone ask Walker to create or send this document, or did Walker create and send this document on his own?
I discussed it with people in my office, and it's,
Was Walker working with anyone to create this document?
well, I was back when I created the map, which is AT&T, the FBI, and my own agency.
So-
But as far as the email, I didn't email. I talked to them with people I work with, and they said it's gonna create a stink, and I said, well, my conscience gotta be clear after this.
So, this fire a year and a half, 2 years ago, the answer is yes, recently no, you're not been working with anyone.
I don't know anything about the case now.
Was this so?
Who told you it was going to create a stink?
My co-worker also didn't lie, people over at the task force. But I'm like, the truth is gotta come, that's all. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, I won't get it, I just bring it up.
Again, we're not here to shoot
Oh,
everybody.
no, go ahead, I'm okay, I was
Was this socialized email? I guess it's on social media. This would be a big topic, you know, so, department like your advisors.
I prefer not getting on this, you know.
Was he pursuing this information from anyone outside the U.S. Marshal Service or outside of law enforcement? When was Walker's last involvement in this case?
2 years, 2.5 years ago, I don't know,
That's why I would read that, not involvement, not being you hit send on the email, but actual legitimate. Is Walker working with anyone in law enforcement or outside law enforcement in this case currently? Did any U.S. Marshal Service supervisor approve of creating this document?
I discussed with my supervisor several times.
Okay. Now, who your supervisor was? That's a Marshal supervisor, not a JTTO supervisor. Scott, same. Did he see the email?
No.
Did the United States Marshal Service Supervisor know that the Upton Walker's involved in this case? Was Scott, would he have been your supervisor back then when you and Oscar were coming from?
It's weird how this worked out, because we worked to get cases. But when this happened, they kind of just sent us over to work with y'all. That's kind of how that, and JTS said, y'all go work with them. So we did, and or if we could help out, we would. We're not trying to create a problem, we were just trying to help out if we could.
No, we
don't need it, so.
we understand that completely. Has Walker released this information to anyone else? No, anyone outside law enforcement? Did anyone ask Walker to perform self-training? If so, who and when?
Later was scary. First of all, I didn't turn for the first 6 months. I knew you and your supervisor.
So with the TBI asked you to
Yes, they called him back up.
and that would have been, you told her, that would have been like the first few.
That's first 6
days?
months, first year, because I was getting stuff all into the first year still, first 6 months especially. But I think that I was getting stuff, I was communicating with FBI too. They had the pink map, which I wish I still had. I don't have the pink map.
So the first few months, April 13th, 2011, if I should say.
Right.
How did Walker get the cell phone data used in his document? And from cell provider, did he get a full
No, that's all right. Yeah.
And where we got it from, you don't know, or,
You got to maintain,
but you don't know the legal process we would have used or not used to get it.
I know the legal process you do, because we do that ourselves, but I was done figuring out the court order.
Okay, but this.
But I didn't see the court order. No, all I was providing was the information.
Okay. All right. What did Walker use to link the conclusions he made about the time of the murder and abduction to his cell phone tracking data?
Because the phone goes into a geographic location for about 30 minutes. Then it comes out of that geographic location, and from what my understanding is, that's where her remains were found. The FBI's behavioral analysis also said she was probably killed during the first hour of abduction. That's been our theory the first 2 years of investigation. She was taken up in the freeway, probably killed him there.
Probably killed, or something could have happened, but
Probably, yes, that's
my recollection is we really didn't know what happened here in that 30 minutes. So that's not, that fair, just make sure I'm not missing something.
That's fair.
So what,
Yeah.
so the 30 minutes or so of inactivity, or approximate location where you've heard the body and the remains were discovered, and what the FBI behavioral analysis told us early on. Do you remember when we met with the behavioral analysis?
She stood in front of the room about the first or second week and talked to us on a few occasions. She was about 5'6" white female with shoulder length dark hair that came to the FBI, and she would talk to the room.
Was this in 2011?
Yes, this was in the very first few weeks of this.
You had no access to the behavioral analysis opinions or anything?
No, just that first few weeks she was talking. Because I thought it was strange. It didn't fit my brain that you would abduct a blonde-headed girl and kill her the first hour. So,
Okay.
the phone, my analysis on that.
That's kind of the first part of business. Didn't need to rush through these so quickly. I mean, you had seen these already, and I would be.
They told me to give you other answers.
I don't, just think we're about it. We need to go through the, but I didn't have access to that.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background with the service about cell phone tracking? Sure. My background is 28 years of law enforcement experience supporting agencies. I've worked on numerous capital cases before, testified in 5. All 5 of them had convictions, 1 death sentence, the guy was executed. Last time I testified in was in Texas. I brought them here 8 years ago when I walked out the stand and pled the life. Cell phone experience, I've worked many investigations, in excess of 50 fugitive investigations using cell phone tracking, working with the guys, arrested many people. Felons using cell phone tracking all over Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana. And I'm very familiar with my agency's pretty good at it, and if I have a question, I have many people I can call that will fill me in specific details about 2G, 3G, three-sided towers, eight-sided towers, things of that nature. So I have a wealth of resources to understand some, but I'm also doing studies. I have a college degree and 2 graduate degrees, so I'll work with me. If you see an error, I haven't done this by many people, if you see an error, I point it out.
Well, the error I see, John, is your first sentence here. Kind of states it for a fact. The tracking data of Holly Bobo's AT&T cell telephone indication was killed during the first hour of her abduction. That statement alone is an actual statement in my mind. And I had trouble reconciling saying just by purely looking at cell phone tracking data that she was killed in the first hour.
That's the first thing.
That's a sticking point. I would never say that. So to speak. So let's go over your analysis. And let's figure out how we can.
Okay.
Where did you get this propagation of AT&T? AT&T?
No, I mean, not you, TBI, AT&T did it. TBI, that's TBI.
Anybody specific?
No.
And that's not. In your last sentence here, in this first paragraph, from recent location of Holly's remains is also consistent with tracking their telephone data, and a further indication that her death likely occurred during the first hour of abduction. That's something else I would never say just based on
Okay.
hard data. What do you think?
Let me explain what I have and show you the map that I created 2.5 years ago. And y'all can reach your own conclusion. I think that's the best way. Do you need to see the data sheets? You know what data sheets look like? Data sheets are what, the Excel spreadsheet that AT&T does, Verizon does, and shows you all the cell phone information, the towers. I was sent that by BI for all the towers in the area plus the Verizon towers. Because not only did we initially map their phone, we tried to map people that imaged that phone, try to find people that route the same routes. We found a few, but nobody turned into suspects. If you're familiar with that, I don't know. So.
He's our expert, I've heard him.
This second page here, this is what AT&T gave y'all as okay page. This is an analysis of all this phone were tracked. And I broke it down so you can read it easier right there, from 7:40 a.m. to 9:25 a.m. The cell sections it hits and the cell locations, okay? This is all what this does is this takes the Excel spreadsheets that are voluminous and it breaks down just Holly's phone were travel on that day. From early in the morning on the 13th until 9:06 a.m., okay? And I broke it down to where she travels from 7:40 a.m. because according to what our theory was at the time, she was sometime around 7:45 and departure from the house was sometime around between that and 8 o'clock. And it leads all the way to 9:25 a.m. I've included a couple of things on the list because there's a couple of pings on the phone that we didn't know about until about 8 months into the investigation that I was talking to Ricky Emmons in front of the sheriff, and the sheriff made a comment that he had the phone pinged several times. We didn't know that at the time in the first 6 months, that they were pinging the phone in the first hour of the investigation. Now I know of 4 pings on the phone. A ping is an AT&T signal out to locate where the phone is. It's what the phone is. And it's geographically close, it's not specific because this is the 2G area. And that's why this phone moves to this way. From this information here, from this overlay map, I took cell phone location, sector location, geographic location of the roadways, and time, and came up with a map. That's the map you see in front of me. I had the original. This is the map I came up with, that I gave y'all a copy of 2.5 years ago. And the map, what was on this map is it's Holly's residence, the typical coverage area of the cell zone that I had to cross, okay? Because I know that when she leaves her house, if she's over this way, she's going to stay on the Dark Tower too long. There's a real strong tower over here called the Yuma Tower. And if you get over, because I rode with AT&T and rode this, and they did a dot matrix map about where you were at compared to location. I mean, what happened was it put little dots on the map that if you got off a certain way, it would change tower sections. And I wrote with AT&T. We had a copy of Holly's phone, we had 4 copies of Holly's phone. And we wrote these maps, and there's a digital map with the dots on it that shows where you're at a certain location. And the phone had to funnel up through this area right here, because if not, if the 811 hit, would have been on Parsons Tower, it would go over here. And would have been on the Yuma Tower if it went over here. So we know the phone went through here. And then we know it stays in this section of the Shiloh Road Tower, which is section 2 of the Shiloh Road Tower for 2 more hits, the 817 and 826. So we know it goes to the freeway. And then there's 2 pings in this section of the tower here. There's 2 pings. And the phone stays in that area, gets up there about 8:30, gets in this section, and it stays until almost 9 o'clock. Because it leaves at 9 o'clock out this way, because if there's a ping, 2 pings on this tower, which is the Cox Road Tower, sections 2, and then sections 3, but it bumps into section 3 as it goes south, and then it ends up around 925 on the Parsons Tower. If that phone went all the way out to the highway and south, the 925 would have been on the second section instead of the third section of Parsons Tower. That's been out. There was a lot of work went into this, figuring this out, and it took several months to figure it out. But the phone said, and you don't have a copy of this map, the phone said it went to cell tower 1096 section 1 for 30 minutes before it left that area. The phone went there and it came out of that area.
Getting that off.
Getting that off this and ping and pings. So where did that pings?
Back when you rode with AT&T, I was down there that day, and your theory then was that it went up Corinth Road, which I disagree with.
Corinth Road? It went up Prospect Road, it went up G.J. Evans Road.
Corinth Road is supposed to the west. I just wanted to change your mind.
Originally we thought it went more to the west because there was some data that was in the file that later we found out wasn't correct data. But after I dealt with AT&T, I said it had to go up this avenue up the center, because if you get over in this area, even just a little bit over here on Brown Road or Prospect over here, you end up on this real powerful 8-sided tower called the Yuma Tower over here. You can deal with it just a little bit, you're on that tower. So I know I had to go up to the middle. Because if you swing over this way, the Parsons Tower bleeds way up into this area too. The Parsons Tower does.
If you use any other equipment of your own to collect RF, any kind of,
No, they can't do that.
on some other town,
Verizon Tower. Not AT&T. That's our phone with AT&T Tower.
well, so you agree that maybe the first sentence here will get a matter of fact, and it shouldn't be.
When I tracked the phone, it went into that section right there, and her body's on that section, and that phone stopped there for 30 minutes.
Okay.
So my analysis is that that's probably when the time I tracked her.
So what you're gonna say if you're asked that on the stand?
That's a tough question. Well, do I believe that 100%? I'm at 90%. Can I answer that on the witness stand? I wouldn't talk to her. But according to the cell data, the way it tracks to that section, it occurred in that 30 minutes. I'm a reasonable person. I'm not stupid.
Well, I'm not here to try to.
Common sense says it went into that section. I'm gonna look at it in reverse. The phone says, and this map was taken 2.5 years ago. The phone says she went in this area. I put the little red dots on this map because I thought that's where you should focus the searches at. And I was asked at least 3 times where you should search at. And I said, you should focus at the freeway. Ricky Edmonds and Dykus and other people can verify that. Instead of going up there and searching at the freeway, they would have some idea of somebody else, and they'd run over and search here, run over and search there. And I said, she's up here. And I talked to neighbors, she's over here. I said, she's gonna be up here in this area. And that's where the phone went to spend half an hour and then left. If she was killed, she should be in that area. And she was found in that area. The reason I believe that now is because I heard the theory that she was taken, I don't even know where the guy lives, somebody's house a few miles away. And the chances of her being taken to that house, held for 3 days, killed and brought back and put in that cell section, which is very small cell section is, I would believe, very remote. What are the chances of that? What are the chances of the phone going to there, spending 30 minutes, and then she's taken away for 3 days and brought back to the same location? I would say,
Are you aware of any of you evidence?
no, I just don't remember. And all I know is that cell section, I'm gonna point that out, because Mark, you need to understand that. That cell section is that little light blue spot right here. It's a little bit area right there. It's a very small cell section. That's, section 1096, section 1 is a very small section. If it was huge, I could probably buy more of that, but it's a very small section. This Cox Road Tower overwhelmed.
I wasn't gonna ask a phone question, but I'm gonna ask this one. Okay. How do you know she was still with her phone post-production?
Because her mom said it was on it.
How would her mom know? No, my bad.
I believe her phone was with her until she was killed.
Do you have anything to support that?
Other than her mom said it was probably in her purse.
Like her?
Well, her property was within her house, and her property such as her lunchbox, her notebook that I found in the creek. And, her phone was with her when she left the house. That was our understanding, her phone was with her. Do I know her phone was on her? No, but her mother said it was with her traveling.
I know, but that's on a normal day. This is not a normal day. This is, she's been kidnapped.
Right.
So she.
But she also took all of her property with her.
Or someone did.
Or her brother described her carrying it. Her property.
Are you aware of any subsequent interviews that or information we've obtained from Clint Bobo?
No, I haven't talked to Clint since the beginning of the investigation.
So is it possible he's provided additional or differing information?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not like.
If you said something, that's not how it worked.
Okay, I mean, go ahead.
No, well, you know, in your email, you mentioned specifically the skullable, obviously this is, but you mentioned Brady material. On Brady material.
Because if y'all hear that she's held for 3 days, this could show that she was killed in the first hour.
Well, what it can show is her phone was stationary up in that area. What does that mean she was killed? No, we can't say that based, but
I was just brought it up where her remains were found in that area, so
you believe
it's too big of a coincidence.
you believe we have the wrong people?
Do I believe that? I don't know enough about the case to believe that wrong.
What do you think did?
Do I think did it? Yes. I think they're worth it.
Why?
Because everything fits with him. After being in jail, doctors actually came in and he said he pledged it. I interviewed Brady in jail. I'll go through this, okay?
Come on, well, there's one side of the phone stuff in which we're done with.
You want me to say bye? I'll go through it. You want to hear it?
Because there's something wrong.
No. Britt, here's why I think Britt. I'll get to the jail interview. I was about 50% on Britt when Art, the FBI agent, and Dykus, and Ricky Emmons, and all them were real heavy hot on it. Even when y'all bugged at Buddy's house, okay? I was like, maybe not. Because I was giving him there could be just a little coincidence. But I spoke with Clint Bobo in the parking lot of the Armory, the second week of the investigation. Ricky Emmons was talking to Karen Bobo in the car. And I got Clint all by himself. And because I was hearing all kind of descriptions of this guy and camouflage this and that, and I wanted to know who we're looking for. And with Marshal Service, I deal with descriptions. I'm good at it. You can take it's going to sound outrageous, but you can give me a picture of a white guy, I can pick out a title of files, which is hard for typical white guys to do. But I'm good with descriptions. And I walked back to Clint, I got him on the side, and I walked back about 15, 20 feet from Clint. And I said, I want you to look at me, and I want you to go head to toe, what the guy looked like in a duck your sister. I said, I want you to go top to bottom. I said, first of all, was it male? I said, second of all, white or black? He said, white. I said, white. He said, I remember the size of his face, and I remember his hand. I said, look at my height and judge how tall the guy was. He said, he's about an inch shorter. I said, so he's about 6 foot. He said, got 5'11", 6 foot. I said, how much would he weigh? He said, he would weigh probably a little bit less than you. He was big barrel chested. Looked like he used to work out in the stall, but he had thin legs. Okay? And I said, what do you remember about his clothing? He said, he had a ball cap on. He said, I remember his black hair, and He come over the top of his collar. He said, I remember his black hair when he was walking away over the top of his collar. He said he had a camouflage, I think he had a camouflage jacket on and blue jeans and some type of boots. That was the description I got from Clint Bobo, way before Terry Britt ever came to the picture. Now, is it an exact description of Terry Britt? Yes, it's an exact description of Terry Britt. Terry Britt knows these roads pretty well, because the person that did this knows these roads very, very well. They know how to drive these roads and get from point A to point B. And this map, when this map worked out with the cell phone, the person drove the least, with the fewest houses on it, the fewest people live. Not only the phone goes up, but Terry Britt used to hang out right underneath this bridge right here on the weekends to get drunk all the time. That's the bridge he got out underneath. And now right there, got drunk all the time. He's known to abduct girls, rape girls, he's a sociopath. You can't believe hell. Not only that, the phone links back, it comes back toward his residence. There's stuff thrown out along here, he stops throwing stuff out, drives past his residence, and the best place to throw something away is this creek down here, because there's no other place to throw stuff away. They do all the large items in the creek. And I had the FBI disagree with me in the beginning about the large items, because they said that the lunchbox was planted by the side of the road. I said, no, it wasn't. I said, they threw all the large items in there right before they went home.
Are you aware that we have found, or not found any more large items?
There's boat floats and went down.
No, I mean, since
No,
you're.
I didn't know, but I'm trying to, no, I didn't know. I don't care if
I'm not saying we are, I'm just saying, are you aware or not aware that we have found?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I just know that the FBI said that the young guy, that was not the FBI agency, but there was a young FBI agent from Jackson on the case, and they said that the lunchbox was planted, that he was told to the police. I said, they don't told the police. And I said, I think all of the large items were thrown in there. And I talked to the guy that said the lunchbox was thrown over the side, there was a big cone thrown over the side, and it caught on a stick sticking out. And that's why it didn't go down the creek. And I said, I talked to the guy, the team that found that. And I said, well, I think there other stuff was down there, and I went down there, you know, and half an hour we found her milk. And I think he threw the large items out right before he went home. I thought all this before Terry Britt was ever a suspect. And I drew a little map back to Terry's house, and he would have got home about 9:34 a.m. that morning. Yes, Terry Britt fits very, very well. He knows the roads, the phone circles around his house, he takes her up where he knows where to hang out after drinking beer, he fits the description exactly. And then when I interviewed him in jail, went to jail, I was asked me to go talk to him. I don't know what was going on with y'all's agency.
Is that this here?
Yeah, why couldn't? Yeah, this is it. Yeah, and in the very beginning, he tried to say, oh, I don't know nothing about Holly Bobo. And I said, wait a minute. I just stopped him right there. I said, wait a minute, Terry. We know you rape women. We know you're a sociopath. I just brought it right out. And then when they had to kind of calm down, he kind of went, all right. And he talked. And I talked to him about a little bit about this map, about what time he would have got home. And he says, okay. He said, he's all right. He said, I'll plead to it if you want to close the case. And I mentioned, we need more than that. We need where her body is. And he didn't say, I don't know where her body is. He didn't say, I don't know. He said, I can't give you something I don't have, which I thought was a strange answer.
Do you know what it means when he said that?
No, can't give you something I don't have. I have to be a psychologist. I don't know what that meant.
Would you describe that statement as a confession?
Yeah, he basically confessed, yeah. Because he said he would plead to it. He told me in jail.
Well, what's this part here about the end where he said, I'm just.
Well, he did that at the end, because he thought about it, because I mentioned to him, I said, listen, Terry, you need to talk to your attorney, if there's time for a deal, you need to speak up.
Amen.
I can't cut him a deal, I'm not involved. But he said, if I need to show you something, how long would it take you to get me out of jail? That's the final thing. When he stood up, and I said, I have to get ready to take me a couple of days. Because he says, well, Dyke says he can get me out any time, and I just got to talk to him about that. But he brought that up for the end. He said, if I need to show you something, how long would it take you to get me out of jail? But Brett, Brett fits this case very well. Did he do it? I don't know. I was at about 50% whenever I went to jail. Talked to him, I was 90% when I left the jail. Now that you located her body, we figured I'm at about 100%. I don't know your current case. I don't know.
So you're willing to say you're 100%, but you also say you don't know what we know after not being involved in the case in 2 years.
Okay, let's take this 95%.
You mentioned,
That's reasonable, 5% is reasonable down, I'll leave that.
I'm not trying to talk you out of it, I'm just trying to make sure we didn't miss
He
something.
fits very well.
Did we obtain anything?
Well, I don't know why I'll stop looking at it, honestly. I don't know why I'll stop looking at it. Because as far as I know, they've been clear.
Did we obtain anything? You were involved in the undercover operation.
Yes, yes.
And a lot of listening was performed, a lot of interviews were done, a lot of evidence was
Well, I think we thought at the time that his wife was involved with him in part of this, but come to find out,
Did we obtain anything during that phase of the investigation that proved Brett did this?
I don't think so. I think we figured out because Art overheard on the phone, he was talking to his wife in the house. One of the very few times we actually got audio is he made the comment, you know I wouldn't do something like that to Janet. And that means that Janet's probably not involved. Because we thought Janet was involved because we can't explain where the car was parked in the house. I don't know that, I still don't know that. They'll make explain that by now. But that's the reason we thought Janet was involved. Come to find out, Janet makes a comment, she wakes up when the dogs are barking when he gets home about 9. Well, the dogs are barking outside. I think he gets home about 9:35. So that's what woke her up. Because she worked late to about 3 a.m.
So you have specific times on your map, how did you come to these times?
Driving around. What speed did you drive? 32, 33 miles an hour.
Why that speed?
Because it's not too slow, you be noticed, but it's not fast enough to be dangerous. It's a little bit, probably a little bit quicker than the average person may drive. Because that's just an average.
You're not from there, are you?
Yeah, well, no, I'm from the country, but I'm not from there. But I drove that speed just because I didn't want to, you don't want to be sliding off the road, but you don't want to drive slow enough for somebody to notice you, I think. But that's the speed of about 32, 33 miles an hour. Then I did it enough time, with Ricky Emmons and Dyke, just trying to figure out where it was when. And it took a long time to plug stuff into this map. This is not made up over. It changed and morphed a little bit until everything had to fit to where you're not on the wrong side of one tire at one time.
So this map was created before, I think you just said before, you considered Brett assessment as part of the new map. Okay. So these times.
This map was created, or you saw it.
Okay, with these times on your map, are you considered those definite times? That
I would say you got to give it about a half mile through 30-second area. And if you want to prove me wrong, please.
okay, would you agree that, so this is not, that you consider this the definite route that you're going to?
This is an accurate idea.
Could it be varied a little bit?
Very, very little, because this road right here, you could vary a little bit right here. If you vary it much, you end up in the wrong section at the wrong time. It's very little. Like if you would come out, like a lot of, like that, I thought you came out to the highway. You come out to the highway, 906 ends up here and your times get off. So if you get off the map too much, you end up in the wrong area at the wrong time. Your times get off. So could it vary? It can vary very little. Like I noticed driving south right here, that the phone turns, I originally thought the phone went, I'll show you this thing. I originally thought it went around this way, on this road over here, on this far east. I thought it originally went out this way, but when you do that, your time gets off. You end up, your 9 and 10 is too far over here. So I said, I had to adjust it back this way.
That's assuming that somebody's kidnapped somebody, they're going to act that calmly.
But I don't think she's with him after from right here on. I think she's with him when the phone goes north, but when the phone goes east, it sounds she's not with him.
You said with him when we talk about Brett?
Whoever, Rick, Mississippi. Whoever.
We don't have the luxury of just saying. We have to know.
I know.
Okay, so
I think she's with him when the phone is 8 o'clock. I think she's with him until about 8:56. Right at 9 o'clock, the phone comes out of that area, the property's been thrown out, and the video analysis said the property's been thrown out, she's probably dead. They said that too. And I think the stuff is thrown out along Yellow Springs Road. As it goes south, he dumps it in the big creek before he goes home. And
In all fairness to the behavioral analysis, and all of us early on, what we say is an opinion is one thing, what we say is a fact is different, correct?
Well,
Or is that their opinion, will they say that as a fact?
what's that, opinion? Just like this is my opinion. Yeah, this
You
is
say,
my-
well, you're 100% sure, period. I don't know.
Based on what I know, let's say 95.
I'm not aware of a number higher
I'll
than
change,
that.
I'll change it to 95, just I'll leave a little bit of that.
So when the behavioral analysis made their comments, they were trying to help us, we called and asked for.
Yeah, sure.
Those were all
Opinions,
opinions.
right. That I didn't believe at the time, but later on I said, I agree.
It's just an email that you felt that,
No, I haven't seen this.
I don't know what email you're talking about.
The FBI had one, Jimmy read that one. He had a map of the names on it.
Okay.
No, it was on his computer. Like I was. Because we looked at how far they were from the tower, and he was describing, actually there's a thing not far from where Body was looked at. He was describing it's on the arc, that you have to swing around the arc. That's probably the distance from the tower, but it's not the exact spot.
Yeah, along here. Right, because your tower will be almost 120 here.
So this one, he said you have to swing them around to figure out, because we were trying to put the thing on roadways and try to determine times, that's what we were trying to do that time.
So this last one here, 925, you think that it came off the Parsons Town?
Yes. And it lines up with three things, it also lines up with the house, it lines up with the creek, and it lines up with the road, so that you swing out to the roadway. If the roadway time would be off, because you would be further south, you further south.
How you determine it's coming off Parsons Town?
Because I remember that thing off the Parsons Town, the further side of Parsons Town.
Over about a house.
I remember that, there was a Parsons Tower. There was a Parsons Tower page, and it was two off the Cox Road, and it was two off of the
We're talking
Shadow.
about 12573.
Let's see. Yes.
Now, let me ask you a question. This is where the creek is, where this E is right here. It's outside that last pin area. Where her phone was found is right on the edge of the pin area. Can you explain why?
I had a thing like this, we were looking at with,
Do you have an opinion?
I have to look at it more detail.
Was you aware of the circumstances of when and how they got the phone?
But, the roadways like this is Parsons here, this is the tower. The FBI had a painting that was out about here, and when we did the arc on it, it lined up with the highway, the creek, and her residence. That was the painting on the arc. That's the map I looked at.
Well, that's this paint, and this is the last one.
Yeah, it's the last one, nine twenty.
And this right here's the center spot for that. Right here's the white dot, the white line. And it was, her house is right here, this little red. And so this is the last final thing, 925, 4894 meters radius.
Was it tower right there?
That's right along in here.
Yeah. I'll explain this way. You have to take the tower and the pin, you gotta run it at the arc of, they said this is not an accurate spot.
No, it's not.
They said there's an arc where you have to run the arc around, and it can vary a little bit even in and out because it's a signal strength off of the phone, it's an estimated signal strength.
How will we determine that arc and where to put it?
You have to take the cell phone tower, and you go out that distance, and then you run it.
How do you determine the distance?
The distance.
Talking about the distance.
Yeah, the distance to be
The
located.
radius?
Yeah, the distance to the radius. You take half the radius out, and you run the pin around. Because that's the distance out from the tower. It's not the full distance from the tower, that's the main mark, you take the tower, you go out half the distance, but the main mark is, and you run the radius out. Just like I did right there. Because there's some up north on the Shiloh Road that do the same thing, that are in that section. And there's a ping out here. And I asked Jimmy about that, he said, well, you need to, it probably is on one of the runways, there's running around to where we locate on the runways. You know, that's probably close to where that at the time.
So,
Yeah, Jimmy did those, I was on the low end, that's fine. Because there's a 906 and a 902 ping on this top. Because it was kind of,
there's an 857 right here, from the up here.
you may have more than I have.
The 902,
902,
the 910,
910,
the 925.
and there was a 853 on one. No.
Just these four. So, here's my concern, let's go back to your This first sentence here, you believe that to be a fact? Is that a fact? You believe or opinion?
That's it indicates it.
So it's an opinion. So as far as the Brady material,
It's the telephone shows or states it on the indicators.
you've written a lot of reports on cell phone stuff that you can.
I read a lot of reports on cell phone stuff.
This is the first report you've written on cell phone, no?
I have to think about that. Probably not. I read a lot of reports. Probably not.
So the map was created 3.5 years ago. This report was generated recently off this map.
Yes. Rick was not the reason I brought this up, if you don't think of it. So, the reason I brought this up is if it gets into trial, there's some stuff brought up about shows about timeline. I don't know the timeline, but I've heard rumors about the timeline can be a little. The defense attorney can make a big deal about it, especially if you want to get 6, or 6 and go. But it's not my first big case to be involved in. I was gonna bring it up, and I found a remains, and I probably should say something. I was gonna talk about it. But Rick's not the reason for this. If you have great suspects that fit in here, plug them in.
But, so this, you don't know for a fact that her phone stayed with her post-production?
I wasn't good or something.
Okay, so
I was told by our mother the phone was with her when it went over.
no, I'm thinking this, her mother doesn't know. If you're talking about post-production, the mother knew the phone was still with her?
No, I don't know.
Are you an expert for phone tracking with the Marshal Service? Have you been deemed an expert? Clint, you mentioned Clint gave a description. Are you aware that prior to then and since then, Clint has given multiple descriptions? Okay.
I just caught it the third week, second or third week.
You give a very detailed description that Clint gave you a few minutes ago about Miranda. Are you, you're the defense to you, are you aware, since we don't want to censor music, that he has given multiple different descriptions of what he saw and what happened? Are you aware of that?
No. I've talked to him 4 times, one time for 2 hours. This is very early on in the investigation. I didn't get any indication he was being dishonest. But I don't know what's been going on since.
Like, I'm with this kind of transition from the Marshal statements, just to keep this, they had a kind of a good, I don't normally do interviews like this, but I'm just gonna kind of ask some follow-up questions for clarification purposes, if you want to jump in or we'll go there. And some of these you've already addressed, so we're dealing with it. Again, I apologize, I don't normally do interviews like this, but I'm just kind of following your supervisor's leads here. Do you know what new information we have received in the last year and a half?
Yeah. I know is that, there's rumors that she was held for 3 days, possibly videotaped.
Now, where these rumors coming from?
I heard that yesterday at the range, Marshal service from downtown, they were shooting at the range, they were talking about it.
Anybody from TBI?
No, nobody.
And what about the FBI?
Possibly, because I don't know where that building was, but I heard people talking, saying she was held for 3 days.
Anybody involved directly with the investigation, I guess?
No, I've not heard anything at all. That's why I'm asking you, is that true or not, because you can't say.
Do you know what proof we have currently, whether it be interviews, eyewitnesses, physical evidence, or confessions? Are you aware
No,
of?
I have no idea.
When's the last time you spoke with our current case agent?
Joe?
Joe Walker.
A long time, 2.5 years.
When's the last time you spoke to Terry Dawkins?
About 3 weeks ago.
In reference to this?
No. Yeah, one of those. Hey, Terry seemed to put this behind him, so I don't know what y'all have to do. I mean, he's gone a lot.
When's the last time you reviewed the TBI case file?
Almost 2.5 years ago. Or more.
When's the last time you attended a Bobo investigative briefing?
2.5 years.
Have you had any involvement in 2014?
No.
When would you say was the last official involvement you had with us, either on your own or we asked you to do something?
Brett. We know we're investigating Brett.
That'd be
That's
Brady
right.
in 2013?
That's the last thing.
And I'm referring to the interview you did.
Yeah, that's the last thing. That's the last thing.
Marshal.
Marshal.
Do you know the specific circumstances surrounding the finding of Holly's remains and the investigating that resulted in?
No, I just called Ricky Emmons and asked where the skull was found, and he gave me a general location. That's all I know.
General and
400 yards north of the Verizon tower there, but just.
did Ricky say he went down to, was he involved in the,
He didn't say anything, he just told me, he just said that that's an interview on this focus group.
I apologize, I've already
It's a
asked you.
short conversation.
When's the last time we asked you, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation asked you for assistance? Do you have a case open on this? And this is kind of a strange question I'm asking you. Are you a homicide investigator?
No.
What is your area of expertise with Marshal Service? What do you do?
I've done a wide variety of things for Marshal Service.
You don't have like one or two
Yeah.
things?
It's a wide variety of things right now. I've been on the Joint Terrorism Task Force for the last 9 years. I have looked at Strategic National Stockpile. I have fusion investigations when they need help.
But no phone stuff.
Fusion investigations, and stuff, and sometimes JTTF.
I mean, do you do the phone stuff or do you call somebody to do the phone stuff? If I call somebody, I don't do it. I have to call.
Typically, in cases I investigate, I do the phone stuff. I've done many of these from Texas. I worked at the Warrant Court in Houston, Texas for 6 years. We didn't have a phone guy. We had a guy who come out of Dallas. So I would just run stuff by him when we were doing fusion investigations. I did the phone stuff. It's not hard.
Is it an exact science?
No, absolutely not. Well, now it probably is. Back then, when college was not. It's getting an exact science now. It's getting down to square foot. So.
But there's no way, absent video or eyewitnesses, you can ever say who's with a phone, what the phone's with.
Of course.
Or what happens to the phone when it stops, right? I mean, that's, I'm not a phone expert, I'm not sure.
All right, we've been going for more than an hour. How much time's left?
19 minutes.
Let's hear it.
I'm missing something. The phone's moving around and all this data's coming in and showing you this, this, and this. Is it telling you what's going on or just telling you where the phone is?
So your first sentence here, your mind, that reads like an opinion.
Yes, it's my opinion, based on the evidence.
Well, I read it as fact.
It indicates, I would say. Indicates because of opinion. I mean, this all indicates this probably happened this way. It's all the information together indicates something.
Again, we're not trying to talk you out of anything, we just want to be sure we didn't miss something, and please, if you have anything else that we need to know
I'm
about.
under the opinion that the phone tracked in the freeway, spent 30 minutes there, she was killed her, they threw the stuff away when they left.
Please, today's the day
That's my opinion.
to,
And I haven't seen anything to sway that yet, that's my opinion.
do you have anything else we need to know about?
No, I wasn't there. That's my opinion. My opinion is that that's probably where she was killed, based on what I see. If y'all have something that negates that, great, that's what I see. I don't know of anything else outside the current investigation. I don't know what confessions you have, I don't know anything. I know one person that y'all have in custody, because I saw his name on TV. That's it. Some guy named Zachary, I already know who that is.
First, suppose you guys, you haven't been involved in litigation last 2.5 years, I mean, it just makes sense. I mean,
I just, for my comfort and integrity, I would like to know, I'd like you to explain this away. That's what I want. Show me I'm wrong. I'm reading it first.
Well, as Mark said in the beginning, you know, your email just out of the blue, sort of caught us.
I apologize for
I
that.
don't you think, it's not the fact that you have this, I was thinking it'd been better pick up the phone, say, come get together and talk, and discover our mind. What if, not saying this is the case, but what if,
If I have to do it over again, I would try, I'd call you.
So everybody's had theories, and some people don't stick to the theories because of new information developed, or that's just my opinion. We all have opinions, because Rick's not the only person that you thought did this.
He's the only one I got above 40% on.
Carol Ham?
Now it's 30% on. There's a lot of coincidence, but I didn't really think around. After about the first couple weeks, it's something got it. But he had a lot of coincidence lined up, and I just asked him, there's a lot of strange coincidence lined up.
And that's true of a lot of different leads that we have, correct?
Yeah, there's a lot.
And then we work these leads, and we're like, we move on to we try to rule somebody out, or prove what they did, or what they didn't do.
Exactly,
That's what we do, of course. And then we move on to another lead. Until sometime we have the proof and evidence that we know who did it, and
Of course.
when you read your report here, it reads as fact, factually, this is factually that. I think we can say this is a possibility. That
Yes,
that's what
yeah.
travel, but it's not the way this reads, so I,
And then 10 for it to be, that's my opinion. That indicates means this is what this shows. Doesn't mean it's fact. Just like her phone, I think her phone was with her, but I don't know if in fact it was.
just in case our prosecutor were to ask, we get ready for, if this were to go to a trial, you think you could produce some more, you said you didn't know if this was the only, phone tracking report you've done. Might be helpful if we could look at another one that you can perform.
There's none of that stuff to say, yes, years ago. I have worked phone stuff as far as cases, these investigations in 9 years.
Those records, those cases, if it's a case like we were doing stolen.
I don't know if the district has it or not.
So there are some reports out there.
Here's the thing about phone tracking and using cases, okay, is that we don't tell our secrets on the courts, okay? So, me putting down phone information in reports, we typically don't do that.
But none of this is a secret, but
This is what we do now. Back then we didn't, because then people didn't know how to track it, know that. It's, the word is, in the last 5 years, the word is out. Back then, we didn't talk about confidential informants, phone tracking, we didn't put it down. So I'm probably not gonna be able to talk before when I have talked about previous phone stuff, but I have done lots of phone stuff.
primarily to catch people or to determine what happened.
Catch people, there's one previous phone investigation we did where girl abduction for one time. We used subcontract.
Is that two different animals though, using phone data to physically find somebody and using phone data to interpret what we think happened?
No, it's the same. We're looking for the person. We're looking for the phone. We'll find the phone, find the person. Just like this, we thought, when we find the phone, we find Holly, just like the fugitive, you find the phone, we find the fugitive.
We have found Holly now, but yet we're still looking at phone records. What would we do?
Because that phone will tell the story.
And have you ever worked a case where you used the phone to tell the story?
Yeah.
As a,
Fugitive invested, under notion of Walmart, Tyler, Texas, back in 2000.
who was the lead agency on that one?
Tyler Police Department.
Did you open a case on that?
He was assistant officer.
Did you testify in court, legal trial?
No, she gave you play. She was working that way.
Were you prepared to testify as a policeman? Are you prepared today to testify as a policeman?
That's my agency. But they lie. I can't comment. I don't get the choice. It's my agency.
Anything else we need to know about you, give us or tell us? About it?
I prefer not to testify. It's
Well,
that's my choice, but my agency.
we don't have that luxury.
Kind of put yourself out. Well, there's a whole lot of stuff I did in my first 2 years of this investigation. So, as you documented this, we can agree that's kind of put you out there. I felt that I needed to bring it up.
That, you know, I don't have a lot of heartburn about that. I think it's the way you brought it up.
But this is your opinion.
It's your opinion. This is not factual. You're saying this is not factual because I just.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll give you my phone number after the off. And don't hesitate to call. Anytime. We have a regular
I
relationship.
lost track, you know, that was the problem. That's probably the biggest mistake I did. I lost track, and I asked, I was talking to the agent over there, and I said, what would be a good way to have, and I explained to her, I said, what, she said, here's her email address. And I wanted to be thorough on my opinion. About what I'm wrong. I didn't want anything unclear. I want to be very clear on my opinion.
Anything official we need to discuss before I turn the report off? You don't have anything else to tell us right now or anything else to give us right now? Yeah, we don't want to miss anything. Okay, it's very important to us that we always do the right thing and that we get the right people.
We talked about Clint Bobo's description. We talked about Brady. We talked about the cell phone. We talked about Brady in jail.
Would you have signed the one against Brett based on that statement? Charging murder, kidnapping? You would have? You're not very good. You would have charged Brett, especially on this statement on the 329.
You have notes of that conversation you had about it.
Have you ever charged him in any murder? You signed a warrant against him for murder?
Wait, hang on a second. I didn't sign it. I was a cop for 10 years. Where were we at? Texas. I worked as a state investigator for a couple of years before the state of Texas. And I have no issue with the death sentence. I mean, like I said, I testified in 5 capital murder trials, 4 received life, 1 received the death sentence. And I had friends of mine that run work. I lived in Huntsville 15 years, and friends of mine were warden of the walls who did executions. So I don't have an issue with capital punishment at all. You know, that's not an issue.
What I mean is normally when we sign a warrant against somebody, we know we're right. We know
Of course,
we can back
I
up.
understand that.
We can back up what happened.
It's been a long career. If I signed a warrant against murdering somebody, I'd say no. Just so I make sure that it's been a long career. It's involved a lot of everything.
Can I go back to this, something about, you say you discuss any opinions and ideas that can be presented to the prosecutor? What ideas and opinions?
Oh, that was, because, they were looking at, charging him with a couple different cases. And the ideas was that if you, this might be the time for you to work a deal with the future, you might be the time to talk to the prosecutor working a deal. I was trying to get him to help us and help himself. That was
Were you along with this? So did he give you any other information other than what you have written there? Because we want to make sure that we're not overlooking.
Was he Miranda for that? So, if that is a confession, it was done while he was in custody, because otherwise he never drives,
Yes.
you think we can get that in?
You have to rewrite it, and ask again.
I think I walked it all here. Did you know you was going to interrogate him when you went in? Ask him questions about the identification of Holly Bobo?
We were gonna discuss it generally, my purpose was is just see if you would, wanted to, work some stuff out. And to see if you wanted to talk about Holly.
So did you intentionally not Mirandize him or just forget about Mirandizing?
I didn't expect him to confess to anything, I guess I intentionally didn't bring up. That's what you mean.
I don't know anything else.
I don't either. I mean, I didn't think it was my place to Mirandize him and get a confession. That's Johnson.
Well, I disagree that this is a confession, but that's neither here nor there. But had this been a confession, and he was not Mirandized,
Well, if you started confessing, I'd have stopped.
The case is
I'd
over.
have stopped and said, you need to get the T by H.
but you're calling this a confession. Did you stop it?
No, I didn't say it's a confession. I said he admits to, he said he pleaded to it.
So this is not a confession. And I say that because some of the other marshals.
That's kind of a gray area.
Well, I mean, it's not, if you didn't Mirandize him, it's a black and white.
But it was not Mirandized.
Okay. But he was in custody. Being asked questions about it. But he was, in your mind, considered a suspect.
Yes.
Okay, so your phone report, that's opinion, it's not factual, that's your intelligence, it's my opinion. As I stated when I first read it, and got some other guys money in it, I didn't tell them what it was, I said, read this one. We all got hung up on the first sentence, because it's our opinion. It's a pretty bold statement.
Cold statements have to be backed up.
Yeah,
That's our problem.
So,
If you were to back it up, it didn't go.
Okay. Okay. Is that your only copy? I haven't seen that.
I can't say that we don't have it, it doesn't look familiar to me, but that's.
Can you get us a copy of that, please? You can have that. Let your original work product, wants to take that.
I'll get you a copy.
Okay, that would be helpful. All right, so, the team map that I showed you, that was created early on. The reason I know that I created it, I had it logged up down there on the wall. Very, very early. In the thing. So, you think there's a budget anything out there that's not on this map? You said 853.
I thought it was 853.
There's not.
For some reason, I have 853 cell thing somewhere else.
Well, I was looking at the phone there.
I don't have this time on that. 853 is not on there. I thought it was a P. I thought it was a P. That's what I put. I thought it was 853 in that section.
And it's 857. I'll tell you what I'd like to read. If you have research it for me, I want to know if I'm, okay? I'm going by what
I've
was
been trying to, Jimmy Red Hat, I've been trying to talk to him for 2 weeks and they haven't been in touch with him, so.
I've been talking.
Yeah. Call Jimmy and ask him. If he doesn't have it, I don't work on it.
Okay.
You can mark it off, and I'll work it.
Well, okay. Yeah, because from 826 to 906, our phone's dark. You agree with that? Minus the things, I'm talking about incoming calls, minus the things. So minus the things, so we've got a 40-minute time period there with our phones dark with no activity. Meaning incoming calls, people trying to find her, you agree with that?
Right. So then it's correct.
So the next thing we see that I'm aware of is 857, 902, 906, 857, 902 are two pings. 906, she gets incoming call. 910, we get another ping on Cox. 925, we end up there. Okay. Any questions that you need to ask of us?
Okay, I'm gonna, the time is approximately 11:15. Just thinking of conclusion, and I'm gonna try to move forward. Okay. Kind of weird situation, sort of put you on that, but if this had to be done, out of respect to all that, you hit send because you felt you needed to, and we had to do this because we was afraid we missed something, we didn't want to fix it. My phone number? I don't have a card.
No, just a few follow-up questions and I'm done.
Oh, yeah.
Basically in this, unless, you think there's something at the end I need to hear.
No, you
All right.
This report that you did was it was your opinion, correct?
Yes,
Based upon information that you gathered between 2011 and 2013, correct?
yes.
And you told Mark Lewis and Mike Frizzell you were not a cell phone expert.
I can do 2G towers, I'm not a cell phone expert. That is a very, in my agency, that is a very complicated thing.
Right. You told
Very
them when they asked you directly, are you a cell phone expert, you said no.
Right,
When Judge McGinley asked you to file if you were a cell phone expert, you said no.
like I said, that is in my agency, that is a very vast, I don't consider the people testifying in the trial cell phone experts.
Okay. But the judge did. I'm asking you, when Judge McGinley asked you if you were a cell phone expert, your answer to Judge McGinley was no.
Correct,
Okay.
I've
All right.
answered that.
And your report that you gathered, that you put together and that you sent out, it consists of Holly Bobo's cell phone information, correct?
Yes.
Where it was, okay. Would it surprise you to learn that Zach Adams' cell phone and Jason Autry's cell phone and Holly Bobo's cell phone were all pinging off the truck stop tower at the same time that morning?
Disagree.
Okay. I don't have anything else.
Briefly, Your Honor, did Terry Britt appear to you to be a humorous person?
No, he's a black and white, he's a sociopath, he's black and white.
Did he laugh when he?
No. No, he was calculating how to work out a situation.
Now, in your tracking of fugitives, is it important to determine location of death? Location of death.
In what?
In tracking this information, you're
In
tracking the
tracking
fugitive.
fugitives?
Yes.
We need to find them, the person.
And if you don't, are you able to reach the conclusions that you did in this case?
I'm not following your question.
Okay, let me ask it this way. You put emphasis and importance on personal effects being thrown out beyond where you believe the remains would be found.
Yes, it's part of the evidence, part of the trail.
What importance did you place on the personal effects being thrown out?
That the person was getting rid of the things out of their vehicle before they went home. They didn't need evidence on their vehicle. That's the importance.
Now, are you aware that there was personal effects found at the remains?
I recall exactly.
Okay. If it's just a demonstrative aid I have, in purple is generally tracks with your map and the times.
Yes,
The remains up here from 8:26 to 8:56, there was no significant movement.
it's about 25 minutes, maybe a little more,
All right.
28 minutes. That's in section 1 of the Shallow Road Tower.
And if the remains had various personal effects with it, would that be consistent with that being the location of death? Or-
Yes, yes.
Now, listen to this question. Does this make sense in determining location of death? That the victim stayed at this location of death area. Some of her personal remains were thrown out. Then she was transported somewhere else for an hour or so, and then brought back to the place where her death was with all of her personal effects. Would that make any sense?
No. If her personal remains and her phone would have went toward the river, she would have been on that tower down there. And she's not.
And what was your expert opinion as to the contents of the Gooch Creek?
That was the best place to get rid of large items, because before that, there's really no creek or anything like that to get rid of. You'd throw it on the side of the road. That's a place you could throw the stuff in, it would wash downstream. It was a place to get rid of large items.
In your opinion, that there was any other personal effects retained after the Gooch Creek?
No,
throw-up?
I would imagine everything went in. Probably even the battery off of the phone is probably in the creek, because that's the time it went dead. The timeline works out to where they're at Gooch Creek at 9:30, and that's when the phone goes dead. And the phone goes dead when you remove the battery on a phone such as that.
And if you don't know, that's fine. If a bullet was right by the remains at the site you said the remains will be found, its diameter is consistent with the size of defect, would that be consistent with your findings of the location of death?
Yes.
No further questions.
Hold on there, Mr. Bates. Let's, you've used this demonstrative aid in opening statements, and now you've used it with a witness. So we need to take some sort of photograph or something to reference for the record of this. So I'm gonna ask that the parties at lunch agree on some sort of form that we can put that as a demonstrative aid into the record. All right, any follow-up questions, Ms. Warren?
Let me make sure I understand this. If I'm shot right here, and somebody takes my purse that has my phone in it, and they hightail it to Nevada, and they throw my phone out of a car in Nevada, and that's where it's found with my purse, is it your testimony that that's where I must have been killed?
No.
I have nothing further on that.
All right, any follow-up to that, Mr. Bates?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Walker, thank you for your testimony, sir. You can step down. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anybody outside the courtroom until this is concluded. Yeah, let's pass up. We've got 3 and 5.